This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Rock and Roll Denim, Bill Fick Ford, the WCRA, and Resistol. Guys, another year has ticked by, challenging year, but there was somebody you could rely on if you needed a new Super Duty pickup, and that was Bill Fick Ford. Once again, the #1 Super Duty dealer in the entire country. You guys have seen what's going on in the car business, in the truck business. You're seeing trucks being sold for thousands above MSRP. Well, if you go to Bill Fick Ford, it doesn't matter where you are at in the continental U.S. He will take care of you. He will stand by the product, and he will not take advantage of you. Guys, Bill Fick Ford is the only place you can go in 2022 for a no-bull discount. Bill Fick Ford. Guys, it's that time again. Rodeo Corpus Christi will be one of the largest paying rodeos of the entire year. That's $550,000 with more than $50,000 promised per discipline, with no entry fees. Rodeo Corpus Christi will be the first stop of the WCRA's Triple Crown of Rodeo. The only way to qualify for Rodeo Corpus Christi is by nominating your rides or runs with the WCRA. You can win $1 million by nominating your rides and runs and earning points with the WCRA. Through the Triple Crown of Rodeo, the WCRA will award $1 million in cash prizes to any one athlete or collection of athletes who place first at any 3 consecutive WCRA major rodeos. The WCRA has awarded more than $10.8 million to athletes in a little more than 2 years. Come on, guys. To learn more, just visit WCRArodeo.com and learn how you can earn a spot at Rodeo Corpus Christi and possibly be Rodeo's next millionaire. Boom.
This is The Gauge with host Chance Conradu.
Are you freaking serious? It's Conrado. This is The Gauge, and I am Chance Conrado. On this episode of the podcast, we have got my man Coleman Proctor. He's one of the most well-spoken team ropers and just an all-around great guy. If you guys don't get something out of this podcast from rodeo people, I mean, I don't know what else we could do on this show, but this is amazing. I think it's one of the best conversations I've probably ever had on The Gauge, and I cannot wait to get the feedback from all of you. Check it out. Of course, you know.
Do I need these on or no?
You don't have to. Yeah, if you don't want to leave your hat on. If you do want to wear them, it just helps you hear yourself better and your tone. But you're just talking into a microphone or a phone. You can tuck them around back
under.
like that. There you go. There you go.
I feel very maverick right now. Talk to me, Goose.
You look like it.
I look stupid, don't I?
No,
I just wanted to make sure my voice didn't sound because I'm damn sure not sick. Damn sure don't have the vid. My wife made me swab the other day.
Ooh,
that sucks. I've never done it until that time.
That's the first test you've taken?
Yeah.
Nope. Oh, I guess you weren't. No, you didn't rope in.
No. I was just talking for Purina. Yeah.
Yep.
No.
They didn't make you do a swab.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. They said
because
all kinds
we
of
were
stuff.
outside on the steps. We
you
didn't
were.
have to. Yeah.
It's funny. I can say it now, but I mean,
Test.
we were down in Globe Life all 10 nights doing the show down
so
there.
you had to. Yeah.
No, nobody was enforcing it.
No.
Just that first night, that first day
They were
in the
pretty
contestant
cool,
tent.
weren't they were pretty cool.
I didn't take a single one for that whole week.
Yeah.
Well, no, I had been down
they
here
were
doing
just
lessons
talking.
for like a week and been running ragged. So then, I tell you what, but dust anymore. You know what I mean? Like the older I'm getting, like I grew up in dusty ass arenas. And
Yeah.
now it's like bothers me.
It bothers me too. Like
And my
it gets
sinuses
in
went
your
home.
eyes.
Was just like golly, and I had to go do another lesson. I was going to see some old friend of ours that got a little age on him, and my wife's like, "You need to take a test." I'm like, what kind of test we talking here? Like, wait a minute, no,
Yeah, you're taking classes. You're talking about a math test?
no shit.
Yeah. I mean, it's not fun. And depending on who's giving you, did you do it yourself?
Oh,
or
it
did
was
you
a
have-
self test, yeah.
Oh,
But I mean,
that's
I went
better.
up in there, like I got it all the way to the back.
I'll tell you the worst one. I've probably taken 20 of those stupid freaking things, but my wife and I were down in Mexico, last June maybe it was, and those freaking dudes down there, they're serious about those tests. I swear to God, this dude sets me down. You got to take the test to get back to the U.S., grabs the back of my head and just
Gets it in
shoves
there.
that shit, and I was like, I still have a piece of that fucking Q-tip in my brain. Yeah, it was brutal. And they'll lock you down in Mexico if you wouldn't recommend.
Well, then I
that
had some friends go to a resort, and they're like, okay, for $50 you can take the test. For $100 you can get this piece of paper that says you're good.
Depends on where you're at.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys, there was no bribing them. I would have given them $500 not to have to get that test, and had to carry my wife back to the room because I think they knocked her out. But Well, Coleman, I think it's kind of interesting we've been doing this long with the people we've had, and we haven't had a guy who actually puts himself out there on Facebook in funny ways. I mean, you're not your traditional team roper. I'd be curious to know kind of what you like, what you don't like. You know, you talk to some guys, and I mean, a lot of guys that are my friends like, well, what do you like? I like to rope. Well, what else? Well, I like to get ready to rope. And then what? Maybe go to a rodeo. And you're kind of a little different, right? You're an outspoken guy. You're really intelligent. And I don't know. I think you're an interesting character to have on the show. God knows we could use some good publicity, so help me out.
Yeah, you guys have been catching it a little bit, huh?
Whew. I mean, catching it's putting it lightly, but I think it just comes with the territory.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. You know, that was funny. I don't know. People ask me all the time, like, why I started doing that. You know what it was really is I have family that doesn't get to watch me.
Yeah.
And think, I mean, this was before the Cowboy Channel was, you know, doing every rodeo. And I would always, it seems like there for a couple of years, I'd always be on the bubble, and people would kind of want to know, you know, like what everybody thinks it's all fun and games like rodeoing. My dad, he's down here with me this week. You know, bad road, so I brought the big chief with me to keep everything.
I can tell he's
monitored.
the chief just look at the way he's sitting.
Absolutely,
he's no bullshit, isn't he?
No, absolutely not. Like that look is all the time. But no, like Chief, he would always tell me, he's like, "Son, you're on the greatest vacation of your life," and I'm like, "You're crazy." Like, because one thing you always hear, you know, in the rodeo deal is like, so and so they'd make it if X, Y, or Z. You know, if they had the horse, the money, or this or that. And like people don't realize, you know, you miss at a rodeo around your home, and then you drive home. You know, you get up the next morning, you eat food at your house, you see your family, and then you go to your practice pen, and then you go to another rodeo that night. Like, that's not rodeo. I mean, that's be 2 time zones away.
No, that's the difference. Like, even if you're doing amateur rodeos or whatever, all the stuff we grew up doing, like, you know, when you're like rodeoing as a kid, you high school rodeo, and you go to the amateur rodeos, right? If you want to be good, that's what you do. That's what we always did. High school rodeo, junior rodeo, amateur rodeos all summer, and that's a brutal trail. But that's like the equivalent of a rec league soccer for the normal people.
And
out
that's
there listening.
exactly
It's not
it.
the same deal that you guys do.
Yeah, be 2 time zones away and not knowing how you're going to make your truck payment, and then have missed, you know what I mean? And then you can't go see your wife or your kids or anything else. I mean, there's just such another factor to it. And everybody thinks it's so much fun. And so I don't know. I have funny stuff happen to me, it feels like every day. Like whether I'm at the ranch, whether we're rodeoing, you know what I mean? I have a pretty good outlook on life, I think. So I think that helps bring a little humor to it every day. So I don't know. That's why I started, you know, people wanted to follow along and see the highs and lows of it. And I mean, I show all of it, and I talk about my good runs, and I talk about my bad runs.
Yeah. Well, I think it's good though, right? Because there's a level of access that people who maybe want to strive to be a rodeo cowboy, or at least want to know what it's like, and like nobody. It's just one of the things that's annoying that you look at, like as a whole. Like, just take the whole collective of rodeo athletes. Nobody puts himself out there, and really there's not a lot of access to what goes on, because it's a big decision. You've got 2 paths. If you grew up rodeo and it's like, hey, you can go all on red, or you can go all on black and try to figure out a way to actually make money, or you can go pro rodeo. And I mean, there's not really an in between. It's either you're all in one way or you're out.
You know, that's an interesting take. Yeah, that's a very good point. You know, I've had friends that, you know, it's all about learning to manage your money, and then because it's a great opportunity, you know, to make a lot of money rodeoing, especially right now. Like it's
a different
money's
world.
bigger than it's ever been, and the jackpots are greater. I mean, you're selling horses for more than you ever have. So if you can manage your money right, I mean, I've got good friends who've done very well. You know, anything I've ever won, it feels like I've just added on to our ranch, so it always feels like I'm behind the 8 ball. But you know, I guess that's life. But
Yeah, it is.
I don't know. I think I always looked at rodeo as like it's going to be this period of my life where I'll go accomplish some goals, you know, never really looked at it as a profession.
Right.
And people like, you know, like Speed Williams and Travis Graves and the guys that I would hang out with before I'd ever made it, you know, you looked at the way they took every day, they roped every day. And I remember that amazed me, because when I was home, I had to work a job. I had to work construction. I had to catch up on, you know, whatever, try to get, you know, money put up in the bank so I could take off when Odessa rolls around. And so to see those guys actually take it as a profession, I never really considered it that for the longest time. And I think that was the downfall of why I didn't make it for the longest time, you know. But then now it's, you know, you think, well, I'm going to rodeo for 10 years and I'm going to get a job. And then I'll kind of do the whole 9 to 5 thing.
Isn't that the sad thing? I mean, because I'll throw myself in. I mean, my sister's been in the NFR a bunch of times, and I got another sister, and she'd been in the top 10 100 times. And if I would have put everything in it and not stopped rodeoing, probably could have done it. But if you don't feel it, right, just like what you said, I mean, there's just no reason to do it, because you're going to go broke. You're going to have no credit, which means you're going to have no pickup, which means you're going to have no trailer, which means you're going to have no place. And there's no one really that talks about that stuff in reality, because everybody wants to romanticize the rodeo dream.
Yeah.
But hell, for 80-90% of the people, it's the rodeo nightmare. It's not the dream. You know, you have to be a very specific person to make it one time to the NFR, but to make it a career, go 6 times like you, I mean, that's not easy. You see the top 15, and there's about 6 or 7 people who are more or less always going to be at the NFR, at least for a given period of time.
Right.
But anybody 16 down to 110 or whatever, that fluctuates. That's not a life. I mean, you're chasing a dream that's really difficult. And so if you can win, investing in a property, investing in cows, because, I mean, let's be real, cows are cowboys' Corvette, right?
You
know, when an old boy
they are a
wants to retire,
75% write-off right off the top. I learned that. So, like, if you buy 100,000 worth of cows, you get to save 75.
Yeah. That's right. And it's not like a truck where you can write it off once. You write those cows off every year.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a good investment from that standpoint, because you can utilize those write-offs to save your taxes, even from your rodeo earnings. I don't think a lot of people realize that. You can lump some of that crap in, but it's good to see guys like you who have a good understanding of, hey, this is finite, and then you set up your life, right? You use it to set up your life. You don't use your life to set up rodeo.
I guess when I started rodeo, and I always figured, I'd just do it for a few years. Well, it was 07. I got a great head horse.
Right.
I took off, college kind of out on the back burner. And, I thought I'm going to make the finals. It'll be cake. Like, then life's pretty much on easy street. And then it's absolutely not the case. I've learned now that making the finals almost makes life more stressful. But at the end of the day, I always thought.
Explain that.
Well, because, you think, September 30th rolls around. We've made the finals. That's like we get to celebrate everything else. Well, and then October 1st rolls around, and then the new year gets started. And then you've got to get ready for all the jackpots, because generally in October we have a lot of jackpot ropings we go. And that's where, team ropers like myself that, I missed the finals, 2 out of the 3 years there for a while. But I had great years jackpot. And so it offset the cost of missing the finals. You know what I mean? And so, I mean, not completely, don't get me wrong, because that's the dream, that's the goal, and that's where the big nugget is at the end of the year. But
right.
So then November rolls around. Well, then now we got to get ready for the finals, because then, my gosh, let's not go out there and lay an egg and only win $20,000. I remember what it felt like the year that Billy and I went out there the first time. We won $20,000. It was the first year they had the big pay increase, and I was standing there talking to my father-in-law, and I was telling him, we're going to build the arena over here. We're going to build like 8 sheds off of it, and then we're going to go ahead and we're going to pipe all the rest of this. And when I got home,
spending the money before you had the money.
Like this, because I'm a guy though. I tell my wife all the time, I've got to have the vision. Like I got to see, what do I need? Where do I need to put it? Because then it feels like I go to work and I get to doing it.
Right.
And we won $20,000. I come back, and Gary and myself built 1 shed. So, but you look at rodeo, and I mean, not that you have a stilted view of it, because I don't think that it all is correct.
Not at all. Yeah.
But because I think, like you said, you romanticize it quite a bit. But honestly, man, every business is volatile. You learned that the last 2 years. I mean, what thing has been fortunate is rodeo has still provided an opportunity to make a living, even here through COVID. The committees that stepped up and allowed us places to go, there were opens and everything else. You look at every business, man. My dad's a great example. He worked for a great company for a long time, and then, they start restructuring. You could work for a company for 25, 30 years, and then they decide they're going to go a different direction, do something, and then bam.
That's right.
You know what I mean? It doesn't matter what business it is. That's why I love rodeos, because you get out of it what you make of it,
You do. Yeah, and I mean, and there's certain elements of it that you can't control, right? Like something happens to your horse. God, it's like how many great horses have we seen die in the last calendar year? It's been weird, but that's just kind of the nature of the business. Just like stocks go up and down. That's just one of the hardest things to control if you rodeo, especially in timed events, is your horse, right?
Right.
That's one of those stocks that you can't control. Something just happens. But outside of that, I mean, you really do. Your mindset dictates so much, just like in any business. But you're saying things that make sense, right? You're saying things that like.
I'm glad you
people,
state that, because I tell my wife all the time, I say stuff that makes sense, baby. You just got to be able to organize it.
Well, I mean, anybody who's got a wife knows it doesn't matter what you say. She's probably going to disagree with you for the sake of disagreeing. But when it comes to looking at rodeo as a business, right? Just like any business, right? I've got another business. It's not this, but also this. They all bring in money, and then you have to figure out what you're going to do with that money to further whatever goal or dream you've got with that specific thing. The problem with rodeo, and it's not a problem, but you could also say it would be the problem with being a professional football player or a hockey player or even any level of celebrity. Now, we're subculture celebrity, right? I walk to the grocery store and say, hey, you're the guy from the podcast. You walk through a grocery store, hey, that's Coleman Proctor or whoever, right? Like, that's cool. That's a little ego thing, but that can really cause problems, right? in rodeo, I think you have to have a level of humility because you can screw up and not make the finals or have something happen.
Man, I mean, just look at me 2 nights ago. We went 3-8 in the wild card round at Fort Worth, and everybody's like, "Great job!" And then last night you lay an egg and missed, and they're like, "Oh wait, did you rope last night or the night before?" But
yeah,
no, I
people have a
think
short
you're
memory.
absolutely right. Yeah, I think one of the favorite things I took from I loved your Clinton Anderson.
Yeah,
right, that was amazing. But in the way that he talked about, his decision to go off training, like he found a passion and then decided a way to make money at it.
That's right.
And I think that hit the middle for me, because that's something I see all the time. I do a lot of schools, I help a lot of kids, and I tell them all the time, like, hey, you got to find whatever you're passionate about. Like, I was fortunate, I wanted to rope. I knew I was going to rope forever. Even when I didn't like roping, I still loved roping, if that makes sense. When you're banging your head against the wall. And last night when I scored bad and did a terrible job, like, I still love roping. I'm still fortunate to be able to get up and do it. And this is a selfish sport. I mean, I think we all know that. Like, my wife, kids, everybody has to sacrifice their time. My mother-in-law goes to the finals for 2 weeks just to support us to have an opportunity to do it. And I think one of the harshest things about rodeo, that reality hits you on the curve really hard, is there's no after. Like, you've got to create your own retirement, right? Like, whether that be you just sit on every dime you've ever made. Let's just say you've kept it all to the side. I don't know how much I've won now over my career, not that much. But let's say it was $1 million. So in my mind, like, if you saved every penny of that $1 million and never spent it, you just put it under the mattress. Well, then now we're seeing inflation at a 40-year high. You know what I'm saying?
40-year high. Plus, you got to take 40% off of that $1 million because it's winnings. So then you're $600,000.
So then all of a sudden, I'm saying, like, this is after taxes. You've kept it. You've hit it. You've done whatever you need to do with it. Well, then, I mean, even just the cash rate of inflation, man, you've lost $70,000. You know what I mean?
That's right.
So it's always having those things to be shooting ahead of the ducks and keeping yourself. Horses are a great investment. Cows are a great investment. Like, find something else you're passionate about. I think that's what scares me the most about as I start getting towards looking at the end of my roping. You know what I mean? I'm not saying I'm done. I'm dang sure not done. But, what life after here, I want to find something else I'm passionate about, because that's, to me, what drives everything. I mean, I'm smarter about things I'm passionate about.
Right. Well, and that's one of the things that's missed when you're so bogged down in the moment, right? Because, you can look at things two different ways. You could live for the future, or you could live right now. There's always an argument that living right now is good because you could be dead tomorrow. But chances are you're not going to be dead tomorrow. And then when today turns into tomorrow and so on, all you'll have is regret if you screwed that up, right? So it's a really fine balance of living for right now and being prepared for the future. And rodeo doesn't do a good job of educating their guys on helping them. Like, there's no financial advisor in the PRCA office to help guys. Right. That doesn't exist, right? It's like, hey, so you just won $340,000 at the NFR. Let's pretend you're Stetson Wright and you did that.
Oh, man, wouldn't that be awesome?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm blue shirted up. I'm spurring them off. Did you see his halter fall off the other night?
Yeah, that was...
With his bronc and he's just like, oh, don't need that. Do that.
92
It's amazing.
Points. Yeah,
anyways, all right, so I'm Stetson Wright. That's a pretty good life. I'm living it.
Yep. Anyway, you're living it. You're the most humble guy in the world from Utah, and, you're all wearing blue and don't say much, but you're Stetson Wright and you get all this money that you just won. There's nobody outside of his family who's going to say, this is what you need to do with that money, Stetson. Right. What if you get hurt, right? And maybe there is, right? Maybe he's got somebody that, I mean, they're a unique environment. That's a great family. Their dad's amazing. That whole group is different. But okay, let's say it's not Stetson Wright. Now this whole argument's falling apart because he probably has somebody. But let's just say it's anybody else who came off the street.
Well, there wasn't somebody provided.
No, there's not.
I mean, there's not.
In an organization like the NFL, you've got managers, financial advisors, people literally saying, do not spend this, you must put it here. I mean, look at every opportunity that somebody who went and made a lot of money in a different organization, whatever that may be, they've got resources at their fingertips for all these different collective people, right? I mean, they're huge. No, that doesn't exist in rodeo. I don't even think the people running some of these organizations would even be able to advise somebody what to do with their money.
It's kind of funny because we all just look at people who have money or have won a lot of money and they know they've done... they've made smart choices, so you just kind of like, hey, what did you do, Well,
there's a few of them.
Yeah.
And then there's the opposite.
Absolutely. But also, I heard Greeny the other day on his show talking about the NFL. Like, there's only 5% of them that make, like, change your whole lifetime money.
Oh,
That's
absolutely.
what he said. And I think that was exactly right. And you talk about, football players who just put their checks underneath their bed. They never put them in the bank. I mean, they never.
Because no one taught them.
They have no idea what to do with it. Hey, honestly, it's almost more scary to have money than it is to be broke. Like, when I won the American.
It's terrifying to have money.
When I won the American, when we came home, I had $433,000 that I actually sent that check home with a dear friend of mine's grandmother, and she took it to the bank the next morning. So on Monday morning, it's in the bank, right?
Yep.
And I called every 15 minutes to hear my bank account statement. I'll never forget it because Hannah got tired of it. She was was like, "Oh yeah, I was just gonna check my checking account, please." She's like, "Okay, yeah, you have 442,000 whatever in there," and I'm like, "Thank you." I'd call back 10 minutes later. I just want to check my checking account, please. She's like, "I just talked to you." I was like, "I know, I just want to hear it again." You know what I mean? But hey, I would wake up in the middle of the night, cold sweat.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh gosh, it's like winning the lottery. Like, what are we gonna do now? Like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I know how to be broke.
And
like, I know
you
how
don't
to
want
be
to
broke.
screw it up.
Exactly. It's like,
because you may never see it again.
right. And that was kind of my mentality. And it was just like, man, I was trying to hold on to it as hard as I could, but then I realized, like, you know, you can't hold on to it too loose, but you can't hold on to it too tight. It's got to be able to go make money for yourself somewhere else.
It's got to be a fine balance, right? And here's the thing. You've got to be the right guy, because not everybody should have money and not everybody can. Having money can be a real curse, and some people are just allergic to keeping money or making money. There's a different scenario you could paint for pretty much every person, but if you get a lump sum of cash like $400,000, you could do one thing and that could be completely gone. I'm gonna buy this 30 acres right here, and then you don't got that money anymore. Or hey, I'm gonna go buy 300 head of heifers.
She's gone. Yeah,
I'm gonna go buy 1.5 good head horses at this point. You know what I mean?
Well, that is no joke. And I made the mistake the other day talking about the Toter Tales about how, you know, I've been looking for horses. Not the mistake really, but then you get, everybody's got one, and they all want a ton for them. It's like, man, are you kidding me? Like
it's harder with head horses, though. I mean, it's getting better, but like with barrel horses, for instance, it's like people ask me all the time, like, hey, what kind of horses are you going to invest money in? Well, I'm not a barrel racer, but I know what horse is the most valuable.
Right.
So I know what type of horse I'm going to put the money I now have into. And I grew up on a barrel horse ranch. That's all we had, 70 head of freaking barrel horses. Some were good, some were bad. $10,000, $12,000 a month feed bills, so much so that you're starving to death as a 14-year-old kid feeding them. But that teaches you a lesson if you come from an environment like that.
Right.
Just like if you rodeo and you actually understand the whole concept of what rodeo is and what it can do for your future, you learn a lot about what not to do. So every time somebody tried to get me to buy a horse over the last 4 years, 5 years of my life, when I started getting a little bit of money, I didn't do it. Until now, because I knew like, okay. So if you want to partner on this horse, that'd be $20,000. Hold on. That's a bad idea.
You know what I think is crazy is Ryan Moats one time, I love visiting Ryan. He's so smart and he's hilarious. And we get
greatest little goatee beard thing.
That thing isn't little. Like, no, I mean, like when I try to grow a beard, it's dirty. You know what I mean? Like it just looks like Coleman wash your face. Like he puts it out there.
Oh, I couldn't even grow what you would be able to grow. He's in here with his beard last time he was in here, and he's mocking me because I don't have any facial hair. That's just him. He's like, I got one thing to be proud of. My name's Ryan Moats, and it's this trucker beard.
That's right. Yeah. When you have a beard longer than your thumb, you can be proud of that. You know,
you really can. Yeah.
But I asked him one time, I was like, how do they sell these cutting horses for $30,000? And then you train on them, and then they sell the ones that won't make it for $6,500. I'm like, how does that work? He said, it's easier to sell the dream than it is the horse. And I thought, man, I had no idea what he was talking about at the time. I kind of just did the old smile and nod, like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. I had no idea. But really, you get it now. Well, we're kind of in the breeding game just a little bit, sort of. Like, I don't even like riding colts. I don't like – my wife kind of wanted to raise a couple, and then it turned into I got one brood mare, and then I've got 3 of them we're going to have this year. And it's like, how did this even happen? Because by the time I got to send them to somebody to get started, then you got to send them to somebody to get broke, and then you got to send them, So you got 15,000, 20,000 in them in a hurry.
Yeah.
And then you don't even know if they're terrible yet. Like you're like, oh, wow, okay, this one's not going to make the bill, I mean, so you don't even – I get what he's saying before you start putting all that, training into it. It's easier to sell the dream, something that's bred up nice and ready to go.
It is, and it's so interesting, right? Because there's been some things that have happened in the horse selling industry over the last couple of years that you used to be able to go get a cutting prospect, turn it into a heel horse or a reject, and have it be a heel prospect, or not really a head prospect. Those are usually reject barrel horses or things like that. But for that $6,500, that's done.
Right.
You can't buy a prospect.
Yeah.
Go buy a reject for less than $20,000 that has decent paper.
Go buy Main Street Boone for $6,500 like Joseph did. You know?
Yeah. It's just good luck. That's never going to happen.
Right.
Because there's all these entities that are kind of monopolizing, which is good for them, the selling and reselling of these horses. Like there's all these outfits, like Melanie Smith's outfit where she sells these horses. That's the number one thing in the world that changed the cost of these cutting rejects. She created like 130% inflation just on reject cutting horses that people are trying to buy for heel horses. Right. And anybody who can get them, who can actually afford to play that game and then bring them, Dixon Flowers is a good example.
Yeah, then you better have a guy like Billy that can.
Well, find me a better guy who can turn one of those rejects and make them a sliding son of a gun on the heel, and there's nobody else. So I admire. He don't say a lot, but god damn, if you want to talk about somebody who understands the rodeo game and keeps their mind right, it's him, because he'll have an allotted amount of money, right, to rodeo. And he'll have this amount of horses that he has to ride and train. And if he doesn't win and he runs out, Billy stops going and goes back to training horses and selling horses.
Well, I mean, hey, and hats off to him because he went and got educated about it. You know, like he went and rode with JD and those guys, and he would drive out there and stay at JD's place. Like guys like that to put the time behind it. And, you know, and I think that's something he is passionate about. And that goes back to what I say, like, find what you're passionate about. Weirdly, like I love teaching, right? Like I didn't realize that. I went down there to live with Speed Williams and get, you know, just to learn how to head and helped him with his lessons and fell in love with it. Love helping people, and I love, you know, helping kids. And because I remember being a kid, and I remember everybody that helped me as I grew up. Like I remember, you know, it was Manny Kunde back then, Manny Agaskiza. You know, he was one of the first guys that would ever really visit with me about roping. You know, and everybody else and guys like Jeff Brown that, you know, brought me along the game, that showed me what little things they knew. You know what I mean? And then it just unlocked doors. And so it's fun how, you know, Billy, you know, he's passionate about it seems like, riding horses, because he can get on. I tell you where I think I see that is where he can get on anything and make them better.
He can.
You
I
know,
mean,
that's
he's a
not
true
common.
horseman.
Yeah.
And he's a real humble, quiet guy about it. But if you get to spend time just watching what he does on a horse that he picks up and then gets on within 3-4 weeks, he's got it sliding. You're able to swing a rope over it, and it's better than most of those prospects out there. And all it takes is he doesn't even need 90 days to get one that'll hit the corner and he can throw a loop at it and dally on it. I mean, it's just amazing. There's certain people in different industries that are just these horsemen, and it's unbelievable to watch. It's like watching poetry in motion, as kind of gay as that sounds. But when you love rodeo, and especially if you love roping, there's only a few guys that train at that level.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Well, I think
train
honestly,
at that level.
Hey, at a professional level, it's hard to do both. It's
almost
hard
impossible.
Exactly. I mean, that's why you don't see just a lot of guys that, you know, I mean, don't get me wrong, like the best healers in the world, they understand what they need out of a good heel horse, and they ride a good one well. I think that's something Speedy said about Rich Skelton a long time, is he rode a great horse well. And like that's something that's, I mean, I didn't understand that statement when he said it, but it's something you see, you know, like Junior Noguera, he is going to shape one up to what he needs and take every good thing about him. And you know, guys like that, but to take a 3-year-old that just came off of, you know, he didn't make the cow horse deal, and we got to start roping on him, and you know, maybe he's cow fresh, he's trying to go to their head, and to find somebody like Billy that can make them do it and go around it. And
then reputation building, right? That's a number one thing. It takes a long time, and I mean, if you look at Billy's background, he would hate to be talked about because that's just the guy that he is.
That's why personally I love talking about him.
That's why I love talking about him, because I mean, he's my brother-in-law, and I've probably spoke 4 full sentences to him ever. You know, I've been around him for a collective month, but you know, if you go to their place and you just get to watch the guy, it's just, you got to admire somebody who just has quietly, from absolutely nothing, from a dude with a plastic bag full of clothes from Missouri to be where he's at. I mean, that is the horseman
from
dream.
the Louis.
It may, yeah, exactly. Your dad knows, but it may not be the rodeo dream, but that's the horseman's dream, to where you have such a good reputation for one, putting in the work on the horse. You know, if you send Billy a horse, he's not going to do the horse trainer bullshit, and he's not going to ride him. You're going to have a sucker that will do the job for you. And so you spend your whole training career building up that reputation to where you can pick up the phone and you can buy a horse from anybody in the entire country and then resell them for more money.
Right.
That's the pinnacle.
Carries with your name, yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's the pinnacle of horse training. That's not the pinnacle of rodeo, because there's not as much attention in that, at least not direct. But it's amazing to keep your composure enough on that side to not lose it all chasing the rodeo thing.
You know, one thing I love about Billy Jack is how uncomfortable he is around like people and talking. And he's a very smart, like very great guy. So when we first,
he's super educated. I don't think a lot of people realize
smart.
He's got a teaching degree.
Oh, if you start talking to him about all kinds of economics, I mean, you know, he understands it from bottom to top. But the first year we go to the finals, you know, Wrangler was adamant that he signed with me. Like, hey, you and Bill go sign, that way you can kind of show him around this and that. And I think he'd be more comfortable. So I'm like, absolutely, that's a great idea. Well, he shows up, like, got his one little book. Here's the big handsome fella, you know, Billy himself, and he sits there, and people are just lined up.
Yeah, Ben Affleck.
You know what I mean? And he's just one after the other, and you know, they're all trying to get him talking, can't. And then pretty soon, like, he runs out of autograph sheets, and I'm like, you didn't bring your entire book of autograph? Like, why would you? Well, no, I just brought it. Well, why wouldn't you? Well, I didn't know. And this lady comes walking up, and and it's a little kid, and she's like, can I get a picture of you to sign? And he looks at her, and he's like, I got to go to the truck and get more. Gone. Like that fast. Gone. So I was like, I'm covering for him. Like, he'll be right back. Billy will be right back. Everybody's kind of waiting. I'm, in the meantime, telling stories, and I'm just signing stuff, handing it to him. Like, Billy will be back. Still got his line sitting there. Pretty soon, here comes his grandpa. He's like, where'd Billy go? Like, I think he went to the truck to get more autograph sheets. He's like, you coming back? I said, honestly, between you and me, I don't think so, but these people tend to think he is, so we're going to keep selling it.
That's too funny.
I love Bill.
I mean, a guy like you partnering with him, that's a perfect balance, though, because, I mean, you can talk for days, and that's a real skill. Like, that's a skill that...
Oh, I don't know about that.
No, it is. Trust me. I mean...
You know what that was? That's procrastination, because you always had to talk your teachers into taking your homework late. And now that I'm going back to college as a 37... Oh, boy, I'll be 37 this year. That just hit me.
Did that just hit you just now? Right,
kind of like the coffee out of my nice Pryor Creek Quality Lawn Service cup.
You see?
If you want quality,
you can't teach that.
Quality lawn service at affordable prices, you check them out.
I'll tell you what, if
Quality
everything goes to absolute hell, you could always be an anchor for the Cowboy Channel.
I don't know. Those guys are talented.
They're talented, and they're doing it for pennies on the dollar compared to what mainstream people do.
Isn't that crazy? I didn't even think, when I first went to work out there, like when I missed the finals and they asked me to come out there, like I got paid zilch. Like zero. I mean, like, it was like $300 every time they used me, which was fine because it allowed me to get my performance bonuses from the companies, you know, if I wore my sponsorship.
Yeah, of course.
So I was like, you guys will pay whatever you want. That money
there's
what
a
matters
difference
to me. You know
that just shows how far behind we are as far as an industry goes, right? Because you got an anchor or something that does something like that on ESPN.
Yeah.
You got to add 4
like
more
take
zeros.
Joe Buck and Jeff Metters, like, right?
Yep.
Both amazing in their respective. I mean, like, I think Jeff Metters is amazing, right?
Jeff is fantastic.
Oh, great voice, and he always keeps talking, and like that's the hardest thing. At the Indian finals, I had to try to talk through the team roping. You know what I mean? Like, just keep it going. It is a lot harder than people think.
And look at Joe. Look at Joe B. He'll talk through all those timed events other than even barrel racing sometimes, and just to be able to keep it going, the flow going, to keep an audience that you can't see, you don't know how many of them there are engaged. It's really difficult to do that. I mean, it's also difficult to have long form conversations like this and have it be meaningful or impactful for anyone. That's the trick. But
when you have a pair, like, and you can keep talking, but then to just take the mic and talk it through, and somebody's over there like me trying to make sure the steer is perfect.
Zero feedback. Yeah. Well, and also being able to explain, because you have to assume that the audience doesn't know anything about team roping.
Absolutely.
Right? They don't know what a barrier is, what the score. At least you hope they don't, because that means you're bringing a new audience. If everybody already knows, then you're capped. You're not going to grow the sport anymore. So you just assume that they don't know anything, and your goal is to educate them through 15 runs if it's the NFR.
Man, do you think that'll change? Like, do you think it'll change? Like, the money will change now with what the Cowboy Channel and, you know,
there's a lot
Teton
more.
Ridge and everything, stuff like that. Because, you know, my neighbor, one of the hardest working gentlemen I've ever known, you know, he tells me, he's like, man, this Cowboy Channel was right before COVID.
Yeah.
Because they were doing all the rodeos. And, you know, he's like, man,
they're going to do every single one this year.
I do chores. I run in the house. And he said, it makes me worthless. He said, you know, and they can watch you from anywhere in all your places. And it's been amazing what's done for the athletes, because, you know, you talk about me and my little toter tails that, you know, I like giving those 5-minute snippets of just, you know.
Damn, you get 20,000 views on that. That's a good chunk.
That's what I don't really know if that's a bunch or not. You know, because like you look at, you know, what's real numbers, like what's, you know what I'm saying, like what
depends on what you're looking at and what you're comparing it to. But if you get 20,000 on Facebook, you know, for a cowboy, that's pretty good numbers, right? You monetize that, you could probably make 34 cents.
34 cents.
No,
that ain't bad.
It'd probably be more than that.
Well, that'd be enough coffee to refill my Prior Quality Lawn Care. When you're talking lawn care at an affordable price, check out Prior Quality Lawn Care.
You almost had it.
Brandon
there.
Merritt. I'm getting better, huh?
You are, yeah.
Maybe he'll give me a reduction because he dang sure shows up every week and keeps it place looking sharp. By the way.
Well, I'm just going to tell you, if
maybe I can get
he just got free advertising on this show.
That's right.
You don't want to know what we charge our advertiser, so he's going to owe you a pretty penny.
Bam.
Certainly more than $300.
So maybe next year he'll put the lights up on my house. My kid. They want Christmas lights. They want everything. Kids want everything. I've learned that.
Well, yeah, and you got to give it to them. It's your responsibility.
Man, you know what's fun? Like, I love being a dad. Like, right? Like my kids are amazing. My daughters. See, this is what happens with me. I start just running in circles. So if you ever need to corral me up, you just let me know where we're headed.
No, I got the same problem. You got ADHD just like I do.
Yeah. So
this is a toxic environment for the two of us.
This will be perfect.
Yeah.
You know, like my kids, like before, when they didn't understand team roping, really, they understood daddy rope and they'd see me on TV. Well, now they understand more about it. You know, like they're like, you didn't break the barrier. Well, you broke the barrier, Daddy. You broke the barrier. Why'd you break the barrier, Daddy? Like, well,
what's wrong with you? We got to eat,
because like I thought the steer was going to go harder than that, sweetie. I'm sorry, you know. And my oldest one, she's so sweet, and she's just like me. Like she is me in a girl form. I mean, she is exactly like me. And when we got back from Vegas, she's like, Daddy, you did a great job in Las Vegas and Nevada. So when she started saying we're going to Las Vegas and Nevada, like it was super cute, you know, try to get her to perform in front of people, you know. And then now it'd be like, Stella, that's it, time out. You're headed to time out. But Daddy, you did a great job in Las Vegas and Nevada.
Very manipulative.
And I'm like, wow, you know what, baby, thank you. I thought I did pretty good. You know, I had fasted and I kind of tried to draw it down a little bit and look pretty. Hey, wait a minute. No, time out. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah, it
And
doesn't
then-
work. That's the issue with children is if they
And she's 4. Like,
well,
who
if they
taught her
make you
that?
laugh, you can't discipline them after
No,
that.
it's hard.
It's over.
It's hard.
So you're screwed. I have a 3-year-old son, and he does the dumbest shit I have ever seen. Something that has human DNA. I mean, we're talking about this little son of a gun finds a way to take one of those little bouncy roundup horses, put it up to the counter, get on top of a counter.
Oh, baby.
Get on top of a freaking refrigerator.
Jump onto
I'm a
it.
30-year-old man. I couldn't get on that fridge. How did
Mount.
you do that? And then he's like, well, I'm going to set the horse right there and see if I can jump from the fridge to the horse. I'm like, there's no way you could be alive. 3 years in, you're still alive.
Technically, I mean, honestly, you got to kind of just, you know what I mean?
That's
Like,
what I'm saying. Like, if she's intelligent enough to try to manipulate a grown man like that,
Yeah, great salesmanship.
I mean, you can't punish her.
I mean, her grandpa Chief there, he'd be so proud of her. Dad always told me that, you got your
oh, I
word
bet
and you
she's
got your
got him
salesmanship.
wrapped around her finger.
Oh,
I
yeah.
can tell. He's over there chiefing it up, but I bet you he'd give her his
Yeah.
full life savings if she said it the right way.
I'm telling you what, and just popsicles, my God, he just feeds her sugar all the time. Like, she'll just be like, Chief, I think we need a popsicle. Well, of course, sweetie, we need one. Let's go get one. Like, wait, Dad, no, put the popsicle back. No, we're not doing that. Are you kidding me? No, the other day at dance class, it's amazing. My kid, in dance, obviously, like I took ballet as a kid, so I'm pretty great, choreographed. I don't like
For some reason, that's not
structured.
surprising at all.
It's fun. I read in a
Might be why
book.
you're such a good roper.
I read in a book somewhere that Barry Sanders had taken ballet, and it helped him with his.
Barry Sanders, and I think
Herschel
Walker did something like
So
that.
and so here I am, some little kid that I was actually a stud athlete, and I played center, and I rode the bench a lot in basketball. Like, sports were never my thing, but I read this book and I thought, bam, there's a key, right? Because I got really tall all of a sudden, and like my feet were long, so it was like I was falling down all the time just walking across. So, anyways, yeah, that's so. I like to think that I've given her some, she's getting some of this dance from Daddy. You know what I
Right.
mean? I'm a structured dancer. You're a structured. Actually, I'm not. I think I was in there for like 6 weeks, but
When did you get married?
2014.
Yeah, well, also you relatively
Is
not
that
that long
right?
ago, really.
No,
What's that?
2016,
What's that? 6
aren't you?
years? 8
May
years.
14, 2016. Can we edit that? I don't need my wife.
Too
doing
late.
it.
No edited.
No, we've been together since 08.
Yeah.
08, yeah.
And you just drug your feet that whole time. Well, you just explained your
No,
feet, so that
honestly,
makes
what
sense.
happened? What happened is I always wanted, like, you didn't want
Hey,
to get
Chief,
married.
does he backpedal like this on everything when he gets cornered a little bit?
You know what? I'm glad you brought Chief into this deal. When I got married,
Here he comes.
Dad told me, he said, son, you're going to have a chance now that you're married. You're
Yeah.
going to have a chance to be right or happy.
Yeah.
He said, no, I just tell you, I'd choose happy. I mean, he's been married 3 times, so I figured I'd take his advice. You know what I mean? So,
That's right.
but anyways, back to my kid.
Wait, hold on one second. Chief. Did you learn that? You had to have been the third one or there wouldn't have been 3. Took you 3 times to get that whole deal figured out to pass on to your sweet little son here.
No, he's just pleading the 5th here.
Yeah.
No, I didn't
Safer.
want to get engaged. We were living with her parents. I didn't want to get engaged and then be like, let's get engaged and live with your
Oh,
parents.
there's a
more.
rodeo
Like,
story, living with your girl's parents. Never
Right.
heard that one.
Exactly. Like, that's how we started out. You know what I mean?
That's
like
how
then-
everybody starts out rodeoing.
because-
Good girlfriend.
well,
I live
what
with my
we did-
girlfriend's parents.
What we did was we were building our place, and it was a hay meadow. You know what I mean? Now we got 10,000 foot of pipe fence, and like I've built
Right.
every stitch of it myself, and
Yeah.
not myself. Like my father-in-law helped me a ton.
Yeah.
And anyway, so I wanted to wait till we had our own thing going.
Right.
Like we're couldn't be like let's
it would be
get
awkward.
married and come back. And it was kind of funny because I talked the other day about selling our place, and especially what stuff's bringing right now. I entertained the idea, and she's like, "What are we gonna do?" I was like, "We'll move back into your mom.
Yeah.
It's so much cooler now." You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it'd be a great thing. Think of the videos you could put out from your,
Oh my
from your
gosh.
mother-in-law's basement.
Right.
All of a sudden,
Exactly.
you're relating to
We're making money.
Well, here's the thing. You want to talk about growing the sport? Have a cowboy in his mother-in-law's basement talking about life. Now you're going to appeal to like 90% of the kids out
The
there who
whole
don't
deal.
rodeo.
I love where you're at.
Yeah. Yeah. Find me a 20 to 30-year-old kid who doesn't rodeo, who probably doesn't
You know,
live
I'm
with their
back-
parents in
I'm-
their basement. They do. Guys, rock and roll denim has absolutely changed the game when it comes to the performance and style in Western jeans. Top competitors like Shad, Tim O'Connell, Shelly Morgan, you name it. Your boy right here. We're all wearing rock and roll denim inside and outside of the arena. It gives you the flexibility you need to win, as well as looking absolutely great in your interviews, appearances, whatever it is you're doing. Even when you're just doing podcasts like me. I had a chance to go to Rock and Roll Denim's factory the other day and pick out all the pants I wanted. Here's the thing. I got to try on a bunch of their new jeans. I love the men's revolver jeans with the reflex stretch technology because they're comfy. They're not stiff like some of the other jeans. Go check them out at rockandrolldenim.com or follow Rock and Roll Denim on Facebook and Instagram for the newest trends in Western fashion. rockandrolldenim.com.
What sets Resistol apart is the legacy of the cowboys who wear the brand. These traditions are passed down from fathers to sons, from heroes to future champions. Since 1927, Resistol has been handcrafting the finest American-made cowboy hats. Generation after generation, we live it every day.
I'm back in college, and I have a personal finance class now, and this month starts where we have to do 30 days of our spending diary.
Mm.
You know, and
Yours is going to be a lot more interesting
it's
than the rest of the
interesting,
class.
isn't it? I'm like, man, I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to do just the rodeo, the
Yeah.
rodeo account. Like, we're not going to do like the rent. I'm not even going to try to keep people up on what all happens. You know what I mean? So, yeah, it's been interesting so far. And that was funny. My teacher, he was like, you know, we've had people in here that are like, oh, they got a tattoo. You know, and I'm like, well, is that the best use of your money? And I thought, oh my gosh, sit down, Doc. It's going to take a wild trip here.
Yeah. Boy, I don't think you should spend money on a tattoo. Well, how much did you spend on your horse last year, sir?
Oh,
Well, I guess you lost that argument. That's the funny thing about rodeo, right? There's such a disconnect from people who rodeo and what goes on in rodeo and the rest of the world.
right.
You sit down with any normal person who's driving around the Metroplex right now and explain to them what it costs to get a decent rodeo horse. First of all, they're probably not going to know too much about, you know, what rodeo is outside of the stock show. But when they hear that you'll pay six figures
Right.
for a horse,
That's what somebody asked me.
you've
the other day.
lost them. You've completely lost them.
Somebody asked me the other day, like, well, this horse, he, you know, whatever, didn't like back boots, kicked out, yada, yada, he cribs, he does this. I'm like, man, honestly, if he scores and let me catch, I'll buy him a pack of Camel cigarettes every day if that's what he wants. You know what I mean? Like that, if he'll score and let me win something. But I think you're right. You know, I mean, it takes $70,000, $75,000 a year to rodeo. That's us paying our fees. You know, that's
Best case, pending on how
diesel,
the truck blow up, a trailer.
You know, but I mean, no, that's just like,
issue.
that's what we're going to pay to rodeo. So then when you see those guys miss the finals, or even the guys that make the finals, I'll tell you what's sadder is, you know, it was never that discouraging. Jake Long and I were talking about this the other day. You miss the finals, man, September 1st, you're ready, or October 1st, you're ready to roll. Like, you're like, hey, or you've just gotten done, you're headed to Odessa, you're fired up about Odessa.
Yeah,
right?
you got to be.
If you just left the NFR and you won $20,000, you're like, I don't know. I think maybe we should skip Odessa because we went all year, went to the Super Bowl of the sport, and then this is what we left with. I mean, waking up in the middle of the night, you know, just dreading, and you know, when it's middle of the week at the NFR, like that was miserable and crazy. You know what I mean? So it's like missing the finals isn't the end of the world. Having a bad finals feels more like the end of the world. You know,
Because it's a long 10 days, especially if
long
it's not
10
going
days.
your
It's
way.
2 weeks. I mean, by the time you got even this year, you know, we won 100 and some thousand, and it was a great week. I flew out, flew back, and then the kids, we were back home, Los Coco's Mexican restaurant, enjoying our lunch on Sunday after that Saturday night perf. Sunday we're back home. You know,
You got to stop with all the free advertising for these people.
well, is it really that free?
I got to draw the line. Well, no, just wait till we have the conversation about what it costs you to be here when we're done. But yeah,
Really? Does it cost quite a bit?
at least a head horse.
Gee, mini Christmas. Wow, that's
I
impressive.
didn't say how good of a head horse, just a head horse.
Well, in today's market, I know, but that's still pretty high.
Yes, it is. Yeah, again, it's always a down payment on a place.
No, but, you know, even then, you had a great week, and it was like, man, you're wore out, you're tired. It's like, I don't want to chase. Like, I didn't chase a steer for 2 weeks, you know, and just caught
Right.
up on just Mr. Mom and stuff, you know.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that's so hard about rodeo if you're doing it as a profession. It does take a lot from your family.
Absolutely.
So if you've got the right woman and you got the right family and they understand and they support that, like that's something you got to hold on to.
Well, honestly, and then it puts in perspective now my job as far as how much responsibility really comes with it. You know,
Right.
It's not all fun and games. It's not, because the hardest thing in the world is whenever I leave the house and then, you know, maybe the youngest has gotten sick and she's sick, the other one's crying, everybody's upset at the ranch, and she's like, what are you doing? Well, me and the guys are fixing to go play golf. I don't have anything left to do today, so we're going to go do that, and then I'll, got to do chores later. So,
Yeah.
you know, that's the hardest phone call to make. But, no, it takes the right kind of person, honestly. I mean, it's Steph. She's supported my dream. She's a barrel racer. She gets it. And,
Yeah.
you know, we've definitely been on this journey the whole way. Yeah. We've been since 08, because honestly, I wanted to get her the ring that she deserved, not the one I can afford. And I know there was a huge difference at the time. Mm-hmm. So I waited until I finally could get it.
I like how you completely looped back around to that just to cover that. It's good. I hope.
Well, no, because honestly,
I hope she listens to the whole thing.
It taught
and
me.
catches that piece.
It taught me a very important lesson, because you know I had a heel horse I was going to sell, and that's how I was going to buy her ring. Mm-hmm. So I had the heel horse sold. Now, sold means like he took him, but I don't have money in hand.
That sounds like most horse deals.
So I have a buddy. He's like, man, I got the lady. Actually, right here in Dallas, matter of fact. He's like, I got the lady. I'm like, perfect. Hook me up. So I buy her whole ring over the phone, like sending me pictures. And I'm like, because in my mind, I'm like, man, I'm going to spend $2,750. and I'm going to buy probably I don't know, something kind of 6 carat, you know what I mean? Kind of flawless. I know she doesn't like the totally square one, but maybe the one that's a little bit more round, not really emerald, and I want it flawless, great color.
Yeah.
You know, and my budget's $1,200. And so after that, lady laughed for the first 30 minutes and explained to me that I explained to her, I have no idea what I'm doing. So just walk me through this. Please don't take advantage of me. And I'm giving you the reins on it. So she would send me, and we'd built this ring together. And well, then next thing you know, like it's costing a lot more than I had intended. Now I'm, you know, they say, what is it, 3 months pay? Well, like rodeo cowboy, that might be $12. That might be 12 million. You know what I mean? You don't know what it is going to be. So I'm 3 times my budget now, and it's like, crap. It doesn't matter. One of my dream. It's the only ring I'm ever going to buy. I'm not buying another one after this one. So Here you go. And horse sale backs out. Beautiful. Yay. But what it did was it showed me, like, when I have a vision, I have something I need. What also happened was I won every time that I went somewhere for a solid month. And I kept stacking it back. Like, I just put that cash, and it was in the bottom of my drawer in my living quarters. I had small living quarters at the time. So we're headed to the Americans, the first trip I've ever taken to the American, right? It's 2015. And it was the first year they had the big ice storm to the American, right? Like, just terrible. And Steph drives down with both dogs, come down there just to watch me at the American. And I had stopped on my way in. I got supposed to drive to this high-rise tower and pick this ring up. And she's like, how are you paying? I said, I don't know. I got cash in the bottom of my deal. So I called her. I said, ma'am, I'm not going to be able to make it. And I was in Waxahachie, Texas, and she drove down there and met me. Her and her husband, the nicest people. I start my generator. We pulled into the Super 8 Motel in Waxahachie, Texas. So now every time I drive by it, I point and say, that's where I bought my wife's ring right there. She comes down. It was so cute, too, because she's got it out, and, man, she's giving the presentation. I mean, I've already bought it, so, you know, she's telling me all this and that and blah, 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 and here's this, what you need to turn into your insurance to buy insurance for it, blah, 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 blah. And her husband's over there just counting the money. You know, it looks like we got the worst deal going in Waxahachie. But not, you know, bad stuff doesn't happen.
It doesn't look like you're buying a ring. It looks like you're buying one of their other exports there.
And I told Dad, I called Dad. I was so excited. I finally got it bought. And he said, son, she won't make it out of the parking lot without you asking. Because I'm like, now I got to plan the perfect day. And then it just hit me, like, when she drove through an ice storm to come out here and hang out, like, you just go to this rodeo. Yeah, you deserve to wear that. So yeah, that's how I did that.
I've literally never heard anybody explain the process of buying their engagement ring better. That was something.
Well, because when I won the George Strait Open, 2010, you know, we have $80,000, new truck and trailer, like, life's good. Yeah. And I asked her right then, I said, do you want, you know, like I said, we're starting to build on this place, and it doesn't have water. It's a hay meadow. Yeah. You know, the road itself costs $25,000.
Yeah, you got to do well. You got to do leach field. You got to do the whole thing.
Right. So, I mean, we've got everything, like, and it's me. So now when stuff goes wrong, like the water line's leaking out there, I'm like, I know that crew that put it in, and they weren't worth a damn, so that's my fault. Yeah. Because I did it. Like, yeah, I wasn't supposed to throw the rocks on top of it. That's my bad. But anyways, when we won the Strait, that's one thing I asked her. I said, do you want a ring or do you want a barn? And she said, well, I want a barn. And that's why I knew she was the one. Right there, 2010. So
there you have it.
Yeah, so we built her place, and then I went ahead and got married.
Yeah. Well, actually, when you break it down like that, it's kind of hard.
See, it made sense. I wasn't just some crazy cowboy that had his Capri camper plugged in over there at the light pole, you know. Was just like, well, this is the dream right here. No, like, we were actually building towards something, working towards something. That's why every dollar I've ever made roping, it's always gone to that place, gone to the cows, expanding the ranch, buying more acreage, buying some rent houses, having this and that, you know.
Yeah, well, and I think that's what you have to do, right? If you're going to use rodeo as a tool, right, instead of a dream, because, I mean, it can be both, right? You can have a dream, but you got to use that as a tool. Like, if you have the opportunity to go and win $80,000, don't blow $80,000.
No, it's an investment towards the next. It's an investment towards the next thing. You know,
some people don't realize there's a second half of your life, like we were saying earlier. And you know, being a guy who understands that, and also thinking about what you were saying, I'm thinking like, man, what should he do when he's done rodeo? And then we were talking about Clinton Anderson. Well, Clinton Anderson loved training horses, right? But he didn't. He's like, I'm going to drop that, and I'm going to create this whole environment where I can be a
presented
clinician.
Itself. I mean, that's one thing that was intriguing about his interview is how it came to fruition itself. And actually, my favorite, I got to tell this one to you. Yeah. This is my favorite Clinton Anderson moment ever. So my mom, we bought, I mean, imagine, like, we had the rabbit ears all of my life until she discovers Down Under horsemanship. Now we've got Dish.
RFD TV.
Boom, we are every day. And our whole DVR was just stacked with Down Under horsemanship. And at the time, I'd gone to college at Northwestern Oklahoma State, and my best friend in life, Kevin Foraker, he's moved in. I hate to even use his name on this. I'd kind of like to protect the name of the innocent. But so he moves in my house, my old bedroom. And so he had a horse. Now, to him to tell it, this horse had jacked with him. And so to hear my mom tell it, he'd forgot. I don't know how exactly it goes down, but he leaves the horse tied up all night saddled. Had water, but he was, you know, at the patience pole, if you will. So my mom.
Speak of the devil.
That's hilarious.
Yep.
So my mom, actually, The next morning, 6 a.m., she's out the door. She sees this horse, and I'm telling you right then, goes in, gets Kevin up out of bed. You unsaddle that. Well, Melody, I was trying to teach you. He goes, nope, you unsaddle that mare, and you be at the house tonight when I get home. Yes, ma'am. Well, then Kevin, throughout the day, he's got his whole evening planned. Huge blowout party down there in the middle of town. He's got kind of everything going his direction, if you will, for the evening. So he goes in, does chores, eats dinner. Mom, nothing, not a word said. And he goes, well, Spike, all right, I'll see you later. I'm headed out. She goes, whoop, sit down right here, Kevin. And she began his journey on the Down Under Horsemanship Marathon for the next 6 hours. I was like, hey, how was the party going downtown? He's like, dude, are you kidding me? Spike's had me hemmed up in here. I've been watching Clinton Anderson for 6 hours. He said, I tried to explain that mare bucked me off 4 times, but she wasn't having it. So that was actually my huge introduction to Clinton Anderson.
Oh, well, he's one of the guys that everybody has to listen to. But, I mean, his whole thing with that Down Under Horsemanship on RFD TV, like what it took him to get that going, it cost him a fortune. The network didn't pay him. He paid the network.
You know what's amazing about that, though? And I talk Shane Boston, I talk about this all the time. You have to be willing to bet on yourself. Believe in it. And that's why I think you got to find something you're passionate about, man. If you're passionate, and I think he said it best. I mean, I don't really want to repeat the examples he gave, but like if you find something you love and go to it. Yeah. You'll find a way to monetize it, but find something you love. Because if you don't love it, you're not paying a network. You know what I mean? And you're not going to gamble on yourself near as hard if you don't love what you're doing,
right? Because that's something that's not normal, right? The network pays you, they approach you, they want that, but he's like, I got to get my message out there, I got to grow this business, and I can think of one way to do it. Well, it's to bet on myself, go to a TV network and pay them 6 figures a year to air my show in the hopes that I'll sell enough bits, hats, spurs, whatever else, and
run off, if you will.
Yeah, my programs to justify having spent that money. Very few people are willing to bet on themselves that much.
You kidding?
But it's no different than backing into the box. I mean, Derek Begay, some of his stories are so great about the money he didn't have and the, leveraging stuff he didn't have to like try to make the finals, right?
Absolutely.
He told this story about how he had $80-90 in his account going to Cheyenne. He spent 70 of that, $80 buying dinner, made an excuse for why he couldn't split the fuel, and then goes and wins Cheyenne and then gets to go to the next one. And like, you got to have the balls to do that to get anywhere, whether that's in the business room, if that's just sitting down and planning out your goals. If you don't have the stones to back into that box with everything you do and throw your whole freaking rope out there, you're just not gonna cut it, and you're gonna be just like the other 7 billion people out there who don't do shit.
What was it? Minnesota Fats at one time said Pressure's having a $40 shot on the 8 ball and only having 20 in your pocket.
Yeah, I
mean that's how we live though every day. You know what? I think where I got ruined on rodeo and where I absolutely fell in love with it was the first year we ever took off and went like to Dodge City and them. Justin Turner, my dear friend, raised me up from the time I was, 14, 15, started hauling me. It's my first trip out there. I have no idea how much it cost, Right. I mean? And back then, you could get paid at the rodeo, right? That was before rodeo pay. So, and you'd hope to win something at Colby at the beginning of the week, so we'd have money the rest of the week. By the time we get to Dodge City, we can eat a steak maybe. Well, I hadn't had that kind of week, and I got to Hardner, Kansas. I had $3 left in my pocket, $3, and I went and bought 1 hot dog and 2 bottles of water, and I loved every minute of it. Or like Jake and I were talking the other day, by the time we pulled into Denver, couldn't afford a hotel room. Yeah. We're trying to count change. The lady, we have to pay her cash. That's what the deal was. We had the money. I mean, we had the money. As a time we didn't have, as T-Way would say, but we're trying to get this room. We're trying to talk her into let us check in kind of late. It's like 4 a.m. Like, please don't charge us so much for last night and let us have a little deal at it now. And she had bright pink hair. I'll never forget it, real spiked up. She said, if you can pay me cash, I can do this. And we're like, Jake's like, I got it. And he went and got, I kid you not, 2 Crown Royal bags full of nickels. First of all, he doesn't drink, and I don't know where he got the Crown Royal bags. And and we were just 1, 2, 3. How many nickels are in a dollar? Okay, 7, 8, 9. I mean, just sliding it under. And this poor lady's just like, I should let y'all just have the room, But yeah, and I told Jake Long, I said, man, those are some of my favorite stories the other day. And he said, man, wow, we was broke? Like, that's terrible stories. Yeah.
But it's all about perspective, right? It's like you get through those hard times, and then you've always got that to look back on. You bet. Oh, man, we made it through that or this. I mean, the last 2 years are a perfect example if you have a business. I mean, it was so brutal for people who have businesses, especially depending on what your business was. Like, my business was housed right down here in Fort Worth, right down the street. Got a better place now, but it was a real shithole. And it was right down the street from the studio. And it got so bad here, like the mayors were telling you what you could and you couldn't do, and you get a notice slapped on your business, non-essential. Can't open, which means you can't pay your people, which means you can't turn your products into profit to be able to pay those bills. Because that's the one thing that never stopped during this whole COVID mess is, well, the internet bill, the electric bill, the rent, the payroll, that stuff doesn't turn off, right? And if you do turn it off, you're hurting people. So you're holding this whole bag of bullshit, and you have somebody telling you that, hey, you are not allowed to operate because of this or that. And it's really hard to get through those times, right? I mean, it got so bad for us that we ended up taking my whole staff from the other company and sitting them at this table during the day because we had a bunch of other things happen because of COVID where we couldn't get permits and things like that. And, you know, you get stuck in a situation where you only have one option, and that's to go forward. Or you might as well just go find the tallest bridge and jump right off.
Well, I mean, I think it's, just like everything else, you got to learn to embrace the suck, And I think the last couple of years has taught us, like, anything can happen. And that's what, like, no business is safe. And that's one thing about rodeo, man. It brought into perspective that, like, yeah, it's not perfect and it's always great. And I don't have a 401k that I'm paying into. And I don't, you know what I mean? Like, I don't have all these things that a company can provide. But at the end of the day, I make off of how bad I hustle, And when COVID hit, I'd bought a skid loader. And I'm running around the ranch, and my banker, actually, this is an awesome story. He tells me, he's like, hey, would you ever be willing to, like, put that thing to work and come over? And I got some brush piles I need to clean up on the place. I'm like, You bet, man. Absolutely. I'd love to. Yeah. And I said, he tells, well, the guy that had that rig that you'd had, before you, he used to charge me, whatever, $85 an hour or something, $100 an hour. And I said, well, man, I'm not going to be quite as fast, not as good. And I'm trying to do him a good job. And I thought it'd be important to show your banker, hey, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make money. I'm not just a cowboy that's just going to sit on the side and be like, well, I can't work,
That's
so,
right.
I was like, this would be a great idea. So if he calls me, I'm like, hey, by the way, I can put something on it, but I ain't got it. Perfect backstory, so.
Right.
So I'm like, absolutely, I'll be out there. I said, I'm going to do it $20 an hour cheaper because I'm not going to be as fast.
That's right.
First few times. So the first hour and a half I'm there, I've knocked the track off my skid loader. I had to learn how to put that thing back on. I had another guy show up, help me put that on. And then finally I'd gotten going again, and I'm shaking branches out, and I knocked the front window out of that thing, shattered it. And I learned one thing that right then, I do not start jobs on a Saturday. I will not charge people on a Saturday to do anything. Like, I'm terrible. So anyways, I come pulling in. I'll never forget it because I come pulling in. My wife is standing on a bucket roping the calf roping dummy. She was going to start breakaway. And I pulled in, looked at her, and thought, I've been at work all day. She's been out here just roping all day. This is nonsense. This is backwards, and I don't like it. But that's what the first day, I think it cost me $1,700 to go to work.
Yeah. So that's business.
That's business.
Got to spend money to make it.
I am heartbroken. I'll never forget. I called Shane Boston. He said, that's the first day. He goes, that's the first day on the job, man. Only one way to go. You got to make it come back. And that's right. Exactly what it is.
Well, and that's what's great about rodeo, right, is it teaches you, like, the lowest of the possible lows. And most of the time, if you're a rodeo cowboy, your lowest of your lows are involved in rodeo. It's the same stories. You're counting change to get a hotel room. You're betting on or leveraging money you don't have. Which, one of the things that makes me real sad, because I got every meaningful person in my life has something to do with freaking horses. And you
seem people, very stilted towards it. Like stilted? Yeah, like, you know what I mean? Like, you don't necessarily love horses.
No, I love horses.
Rodeo and, like, the business side of it. Like,
I do. What I love more is the people. Right. And what I don't like is people suffering because, one, they won't educate themselves, or two, there's not enough support for them. So when I'm saying this stuff, it's more from, like, an educational standpoint, because I know there's hundreds of thousands of people who are about to hear it.
Gotcha.
Right? So if I can approach it from two different, like, there's one thing to romanticize something, and there's another thing to be real about it. And then you kind of, at least the way that I think the best way to present information is, you bounce between the two. I love rodeo more than any sport on planet Earth. If there's anything I could do to help rodeo, I'm going to do it. That's why I do this.
Gotcha.
I don't take a dime out of this, even though it makes plenty of dimes.
Right.
Because I don't think that's correct. Like, I don't think it's right for me to pull money out of this, at least not right now. We got people, staff we have to pay and all that, but it would make me a hypocrite. So I wouldn't do that. I think one of the most admirable things somebody can do is go and win a gold buckle with integrity. I think it's amazing. I think that person should be admired till the end of time. What I don't like is if they go do that and they don't make themselves accessible to anybody.
Right.
Right.
So when rodeo's over and the gold buckle tarnishes, like, what do they have?
Well, they don't have anything. And you want to talk to some of these people who've won 5, 6, 7, 8 of them. Listen to Joe B. He's the most straightforward guy about the reality out of everybody. I think it's important, if you're going to sell the dream or the membership, that you tell them what it costs. And nobody who's selling that dream or that membership is going to do that. So if I come across as stilted or maybe a little,
I just said in the Clinton Anderson one, like, I just, because honestly, like, I had no idea. Yeah. And honestly, when the first time he said, calls your name Rodeo, I'm like, oh, well, I thought maybe he was related to Ivy. Like, you know what I mean? I had no idea. Like,
sister.
In full disclosure. Yeah. So then when I hear you talk about it, I thought, wow, like, he doesn't really like rodeo.
No, love
But that's
rodeo.
great. That's why I wanted to ask you that.
Now, there's more to that, right? It's that I had a big jealousy issue with Ivy because we ran a barrel racing outfit, and I love rope calves.
Oh,
which means we never had freaking good calf horses. So every time I wanted to rope calves, it was a pain in the ass, right? Or I would put everything I had into it, and it would screw me over, right? So yeah, I was a little negative towards it because it burned me so many times. And it wasn't it that burned me. It was me that burned me because I wasn't prepared, which is why I talk about guys being prepared, because I had debts. I put money, trusted people with horses, drove from Denver to Stephenville to pick up a calf horse that was a donkey, just did all these different things chasing rodeo.
Rodeo is what you did.
Yeah, chasing rodeo. And I did it in a way where it really screwed me up.
I got you.
And the difference is like a guy like you or a guy like Billy or anybody in the top 15 or has been to the NFR and has been successful at it, that's the minority. And what I think it's important to do is not over romanticize something that not everybody can do, because it just hurts people, right? So if you're like me and you're not, and here's the reason why I didn't succeed at it, because I didn't put it all on black and go for it. I was like, I'm going to dabble in it.
That's okay. That's what I was fixing to say.
Yeah. Wasn't confident enough
you
to
can't
do it
have
right.
1 foot in and 1 foot out. That's what I did for years, man.
You cannot.
I thought that I would have had, I missed the finals in 07 by $4,000.
Yep.
I thought, man, 08's going to be a breeze.
Right.
And then here I am 14 before I ever make it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
2014. So that's what people don't understand and that's what they don't understand, the commitment to it. Like if you're
That's
going to
right.
rodeo, there's absolutely nothing wrong with this dream. And I used to be kind of the same. I was stilted towards it.
It's probably the best. It's probably the best dream.
When
you
I'm
could have
making
if you're a cowboy.
$150 a day working for my dear friend Scott McGill, putting up, metal buildings.
That's right.
And you're working. You're working. I'm over there trying to learn how to walk on top of rafters and do all kinds of stuff. I'm like, this is stupid. And I'm driving the George Strait truck every day to work, right? Like, I'm like, man, I used to be good at something else. But no, I was stilted towards it. I did not like it. But then when you realize two things, and I believe this is wholeheartedly, it doesn't matter what aspect in life you're at. And I think this is why I'd keep an optimistic view towards things, is if you want something, you write it down. You talk about it. You think about it. You envision it. Because one or two things are going to happen. Like if I write that dream down every day, it's either going to happen or I'm going to quit writing it down. Those are your two choices. That's it.
Right. That's
and
right.
so people that want to rodeo and do this, they need to understand, no, you're not going to see mom and dad. And I'm tired of hearing about this guy would make it if he had X, Y, and Z, because nonsense. I didn't have X, Y, and Z.
How many
and I've
guys are
made
you
it.
buddies with or friends with, and we're like, well, man, I could rope with the best of them. I could do this with the best of them. Just, this or that. And it's like, man, no, probably you couldn't. Right?
No, Eastern Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Well, honestly, Eastern Oklahoma was full of talent that never made it. You know what I mean? that for variable reasons, you know what I mean? For all kinds of X, Y, and Z factors. The why they didn't ever get out and do it.
That's right.
And some people, and I think Buddy Hawkins and I had a great discussion one time about like measuring your own success. Like what's your measure of success? Like, you're just because that would be my dream for you doesn't mean that's your dream for you.
Well, Buddy's so good about that stuff because he's able to speak on that stuff. He's a real smart guy.
He is super smart.
Really, really impressed when Buddy talks.
He is the Swiss Army knife of healers. He can fix anything.
Yeah.
I opened up the door to my camper or my trailer one time, and the microwave door was off of it.
Yeah.
And I looked over, and Buddy Hawkins is wiring it. Like, for me, that is a major inconvenience. I need oatmeal every morning, because I can only have X amount of calories, and I got to have them done by lunch and this and that. So I'm like, oh, boy.
Yep.
And I look over, and Buddy Hawkins is hot wiring in a converter or a charger or something. And I'm like, well, if you can handle that.
He's cool as shit.
And I'll be danged if he doesn't have it. Like, he has a bolt, he has a hacksaw, and he has my whole deal fixed that fast. I'm like, holy cow.
Dude's got a brain.
Oh, super brain. You don't want to talk numbers with him. He will know it off the top of his head.
No, and talk about
now.
a guy who understands how to utilize rodeo to get, to his goals. He talks about that stuff. He's just, people should listen to him. Just like they should listen to you.
And that's what, but like Buddy Hawkins to me is a prime example. Like I grew up around Buddy. I say that. I mean, the first time I saw him, he was 15, 16, maybe 17.
Yeah.
And I had no idea who he was, and he roped really good. I mean, you could see it at a young age earlier. And so if that guy can go make the national finals, because he didn't have anything.
Right.
You know what I mean? So don't give me your excuses about you don't have the horse, your money, your support, the header, the this and that. Like, guess what? When we all start, nobody has that. It's just who's willing to write that dream down every day and see it come through.
Well, and it's easy as a healer specifically to be able to kind of make some excuses, because as a healer, you're starting a little farther back because you got freaking wealthy healers paying people to head for them, right? Doing these different things. So if you're a guy who doesn't have a lot of money and you want to heal.
Interesting thing and I just want to pick your brain on it.
Yeah.
You see people get paid all the time to rope with people, right?
You do.
But you don't see a lot of them come back out of that.
No.
Okay? And I mean, you don't. Like, they're not, at least not to the status they were before that. So do you think a little bit of financial security is almost hurtful in an aspect when you're a competitive person or a healer or this and that, whenever you're having to put the bread on the table?
You got to look at it through at least from two different aspects, right? Because that's a bird in the hand versus a, bird in the bush situation, right? Like it, and that's another thing about talking about the future. Like if somebody sees that you're kind of guy who's the only people you're going to rope with are the guys who are going to pay you, well, when you're done with that and you want to go, like Let's say you turn somebody down.
Just their skill set is what
Yeah.
I'm talking about. Like they don't have that same killer instinct type. You know what I mean?
Well, you
They
know
don't
what they
bounce
say.
back well
You know
out
what they
of it.
say about competition, right? So you either elevate or you go down to your level of competition.
Right, I agree
So
with that.
if you're a world champion healer and you're roping with some low number new guy, they're going to take something away from your roping from doing that,
For sure.
right? Just like if you were to, let's say you're an NFL football player and then you go play in the Canadian League. You're not going to be that same monster.
Or
you
even
were
be
in the
on one of these
NFL.
teams that starts trying to tank. You know what I mean?
Same
you
thing.
get robbed
You
your
see
whole
that.
career right there. Boom.
So if you're a world champion healer and you go and you start roping with rich guys who can barely turn you a steer and you're just kind of going through the motions,
Yeah.
you're going to lose an element of your edge in your game that you might not ever get back. So I think it's a long-term mistake, especially depending on what your goals are. But if some guy's going to say, I'm going to pay you $5,000 to go rope with me at these World Series rope-ins, that's all cool. That's great. But you're not going to be the same guy. You're roping a slower steer. You're roping with a slower guy. Like, it's just not the same game.
And then that becomes
that's checkers, not chess.
That becomes a whole nother issue of like, well, what define your success, man? Like,
Yeah.
if you're guaranteed
but at
X
the same
amount and that
time-
makes you happy and like you've done the goals you want to do, like when Speed Williams, like he does a great job teaching. He does a great job and he's
He's been doing it the longest.
the silliest, smartest guy on it, but if people always tell the time, well, he didn't have it. Like whenever he came back, he tried to come back. He was going to win the 9th gold buckle. And then, come April, he goes home.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And for whatever reasons, I'm not going to discuss why he didn't work out. But I'll tell you what, and everybody say, well, he just didn't have it anymore. Nonsense. I think there's an element of you take the schools away, you take the ability to make a living for your family doing something else away, and like you only got that head rope again.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's no way you could stop that guy. You know
No.
what I mean? It's still in there. And that's one thing Jake and I talked about. You see me now doing, when I do the Toter Tails deal, it's merely for the people who love following me. That's it.
And
Right?
it's
Like I'm not
entertaining.
and I'm not fake. That's exactly who I am. And I'm a fairly optimistic person, and I kind of chuckle a lot. I'm not saying I'm not an angry individual. Not saying I'm not a competitive person. Like last night, I was mad that I missed, physically mad. But I understand now more about myself that it is not the result that I've got to lean on. It is the process of which and dive everything into. You got to be able to break yourself down like you're a math problem and take stuff out with zero emotion, because that emotion's what gets a guy in trouble. When I start getting mad, it shuts off the part of my brain that allows me.
Yeah, your rational.
I call it
sense.
going
Yeah.
full Mays County, right? Like, when you get snapped off full Mays County, I can't get better, right? And then, I looked at the way I was talking to myself. I wouldn't let anybody talk to me that way. I wouldn't talk that way to anybody. And here I am doing that to myself. So I learned that now I've got to make myself feel better and kind of get back up to where I got to calm down enough that I can actually look and learn something. And I learned, man, like I need to cut that fat out of there. I need to cut that wasted time out. So yeah, that's why I smile. I forced myself to smile. You think I wanted to smile last night when I missed that sucker? Absolutely not. But I forced a smile on my face because I understand that is a part of me getting better. I dive into the process of what went wrong.
Well, you have to
That fast.
compartmentalize in whatever you're doing. And if you don't, then you're just going to suffer. And then your performance is going to suffer time and time and time again, which then means in turn your life is going to suffer.
Right.
Right. And here's the reason that I wanted to do this show when I started it so bad. One, I had no idea it was going to be as wildly successful as it is. That's great. Not why I did it. It's because there's nobody from our industry. You can go to any other sport, any other industry, and you'll hear people who have done it, are doing it, or will do it, are talking on big platforms about this stuff.
Right.
What you don't have is you don't have a rodeo cowboy like you or somebody like Clinton Anderson who sits down and is just freaking real with people and explains what it takes to be financially successful in the horse business, to be a successful rodeo athlete. Like, no one wants to do that. Some guys can't verbalize it like you can, or Clinton Anderson can, or even I can, like at least in a way where it's palatable to people and they get something out of it. So going back to what you said about kind of feeling a certain way about rodeo, my only issue with rodeo is I don't feel like the athletes get enough.
Yeah.
Right? The fact that someone like Sage Kimsey can show up to a rodeo and there's no appearance fee when good damn well a lot of people are there just to watch him or whoever. They need compensation. The money's there, right? So that's an issue I have, is that there's some mismanagement involved in the industry. The other thing that I have is competitors want to bitch about this and that, and you know that, right? But nobody wants to throw their hat in the ring and actually stand up for what they think should be done. They just want to talk about it. So that's another issue I have with it. And then the other thing is some people leverage their entire life on it and never think about what's coming next. I'll never, ever say names, but I have great friends who have multiple world championships who are working at freaking feed stores or working jobs at the second half of their life. And that's one of the saddest things in the world to someone like me, is to see people that you care about, that did stuff that most people could only dream that they'd be capable of even attempting, right? You know that. You won the American. I mean, for God's sakes, that's the biggest thing somebody can do monetarily in rodeo in one shot. And it would be a huge tragedy if you weren't as intelligent as you are and you fucked that whole thing off, excuse my language, and then your life sucks. The second half of your life
Well, I think,
sucks.
you know what I finally, the waking up in the middle of the night and you call all your buddies that have money, like Shane Boston told me, he said, son, be careful. He said, that's not that much money.
No.
And it ain't. I mean, like, it's the most money I've ever seen in my life, and it's the two coolest checks I've got up there in my upstairs, movie room right next to my golf simulator. Like, you know what I mean? So I can look at it every day. But, they're cool to look at, but at the end of the day, it was like, finally I had to realize, be happy with where you put it. You know, if you're happy going out, like, which right now is a terrible example because my man John Wayne's at home having to take care of the cows while it's snowing and stuff. Right. But, like, I'm happy out there with those cows. Yeah. So put it places that you know, put it places that you see. And then I'm happy paying bills around those cows. Yeah.
I think that's the most important thing that could ever be said. As long as you're happy with it.
Like, I think I have such a, Jake and I talk all the time about, our approaches are different. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of happy-go-lucky. I'm, and I on the surface, and so you could mistake me as not being that competitive of a person, right? No, but I just realized I don't operate well in those other. We were roping together. Jake, he kind of verbalized that he would like to see me get mad and know that it bothered me, right? And so then I was like, okay,
is that because he thinks maybe you're not taking it as serious,
right? And I know that that's how people can view me, but then, I think that's what first taught me. Like, I don't operate well like that. I'll never forget we were at Mineral Wells, Texas, and I missed one, and I looked and we locked eyes after I missed. And not that Jake was mad at me for missing, and not that I would really care if he was. Like, we grew up with basically brothers. So yeah. But we lock eyes, the first thing I said, I suck. Like, it just like a scolded puppy. And I right then was like, this is not how I do well. Right. What is success to me? Hey, if I win 5 gold buckles and I go work, one day I know I mentioned my Los Cocos Mexican restaurant. Mm-hmm. I tell everybody when I retire, I'm gonna wait tables in there. Yeah. Right. Will that be sad if you look at it, you're like, wow, Coleman Proctor, world champion team roper, won the American, done all this.
Without context,
he's working over there. But hey, that's my end goal. One day I'm gonna have a 72 Chevelle. I'm gonna have 1 heel horse, and I'm gonna have a set of golf clubs, and I'm gonna wait tables. Yeah. Right. Because Steph hates it when I say that. She's gonna love that part. But no, but to me, that would be happiness. Sure. Right. That would be you got to define it for yourself, and then what are you willing to pay for it? Yeah. And
so for me, I'll speak on it too. Like, the reason I decided to give up the goal at rodeo is because I finally took a realization. I had just got done putting shoes on 2 horses that didn't belong to me, getting their teeth floated. Just spent money I didn't have to do it. Left for a little while, came back, and those horses were gone. And that's when I made up my mind that this stops. Right. And because I was betting on what other people were going to do for me because I couldn't do it for myself. Oh. And it...
Sharp words. Great words.
It was a really, really rude awakening for me because I had left Colorado, come to Texas, came back. Those 2 horses were gone. I had been riding them. One of them was a heel horse, was trying to rope calves on. The other one was a horse that the family had. I came back. I had spent $250 on each horse on their shoes and $200 on their... getting their teeth floated.
So $1,000 gone.
Over $1,000. 24 years old, didn't have it. Had a new baby. Had a wife that I was basically. I'm gonna be real honest. I had made sure that marriage was about to end. Luckily, it hasn't. We're happy now. But and I had an opportunity to go start a business with somebody, and my back was up against the wall, and I had run the last 9, 10. This is when Ivy first started making her success. I had quit rodeoing 4 or 5 different times, like a lot of people had, just because.
You fall in and out of love with her. Yeah. I promise you that.
Yeah, well, and turns out my heart wasn't in it enough to stay in love enough to not, go work a job and then try to rope in the evenings. That doesn't work. Yeah. And
but honestly, when you got bills to pay, that's what you got to do.
You do. Yeah. And everybody doesn't start in the same place, and everybody's journey is not the same, and that's okay. And that's another thing I try to get across because people romanticize the rodeo so much that they let it screw up their self-worth. Right. They really do. If you're not a world champion, you're not in the NFR, but you're going to watch, for some reason, you're not valuable. Right. And I think it's not okay for people to feel that way, which is why I come at it from the direction that I do. Because when I decided to do that, I went and I started this business in Texas with nothing, borrowed money to do it with somebody. Somebody allowed me the opportunity to own a business with them, and then I paid off debts and all that to get it done, which then opened me up to where I had money to do things. Not 6 years later, now I've got this, right? Now I can buy horses. Now I'm able to do things.
Now it's a pleasure. It's not a necessity.
Which means if you sacrifice whatever that is, or let go of certain dreams, that's also okay. There's another way to get back into it.
But do you think that, in a weird way, rodeo prepared you for what was after? You know what I mean? Well, making those hard decisions and putting your back against the wall.
Well, rodeo And then growing up in the Western lifestyle, your back's going to be against the wall pretty much the whole time. If you're training horses for money, your back's going to be against the wall no matter what you do. All it takes is one thing to go wrong. One horse cutting their foot, one person not paying you, and you're up shit creek, and you got to figure it out. So I admire people who are able to do that, right? I used to resent my dad a lot because I didn't like his methods. And now I realize, like, God, he was just doing whatever he had to do to try to keep it
rolling,
shit moving. And I may not have agreed with his methods, or maybe I didn't understand his motivations. Maybe he didn't. I used to just be a little judgmental about it. I don't do that anymore. And granted, I'm older now, but my goal, the reason that I decided to stop doing rodeo and pursue something different is so that I could come back to it in the way that I wanted to, where I control the narrative. So you either start that way and you stick with it, or you don't, you can come back.
I will never forget. There's two instances that stick out very, very strong in my mind. One, I'd gone to heel for Speed Williams mainly just to learn how to head.
That's right.
I knew that I had a great professor in college that told me that, I wanted to drop a class. I'm a rodeo kid. So you always take 18 hours and you'll weed it back to 15, make sure you're going to be eligible carrying your 12, And I'll never forget Roger Fitt, he says, how are you going to pass this class next semester if you take it? And I said, well, I'll try harder. And he said, Coleman, you can try to run into a brick wall. And if you're not getting through it, you got to devise a different plan. So you come back to me with a plan on how you're going to do better next semester, and I'll let you drop this class. And it was genius speak, And then so for me, I did not. I was missing the finals. I didn't understand what I was doing wrong. I knew there was one way to fix it. And I went to Speed, and I went to healing for him just to learn how to head, just to see his process. Taught me so much. Well, then now he's going to give me a chance to heal for him. And it's 2012, so I don't even know how old would I have been there. 10 years ago, boy, 20, going on 27 years old. And here's an opportunity to go to heel for him. It's all, all the hoopla, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, now I'm excited. I never really wanted to make the finals healing. And in fact, I told Speedy when I got down there, he said, what are you doing? I said, I want to head for Jake Long again. I want to make the national finals heading. Like, those are my two goals. I put my time in healing for him. It taught me a valuable skill set about these schools and these lessons and the doors that he's opened me and everything he taught me. And then he cuts me, right? That was a harsh reality right there. Here I am, U.S. finals. I had forgone the next year. I'm healing. I'm not even going to have a partner. And I'll never forget, Steph and I were sitting at Henry Hudson's pub right after the open shootout, and we're sitting there. And I said, man, maybe this dream just isn't for me, And we were just having a serious conversation about it, like not the how you going to afford it conversation or this is dumb. It's just like, hey, the realization that maybe I shouldn't be doing this, And I kind of lost that motivation. I'll never forget, Jake Long goes to the finals. He had a terrible finals, and he calls me. Of course, in Vegas time, it's whatever. 1 o'clock in the morning. Back home, it's 3. I'm getting up in 2 hours, right? So I got to go to work over at M4 Construction. I'm strapping down some steel today, We don't accept quality, we don't sacrifice quality for nobody. And I'll never forget, he called me, and he's just I was appalled by it then, but I understood it after having a few bad finals. It was just the whole conversation of like, man, this sucks. Long 2 weeks. This ain't worth it. Blah, 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 And I'll never forget, I had to go do a fencing job, and the alternator, on the way home, the alternator had gone out. I had to stop, buy a new alternator, money I didn't have, putting this on a truck that I didn't even own. It was my father-in-law's at the time. And I'd been up there doing this fence job. Boy, I got back, and Mickey Clayton, my neighbor, he's helping put this alternator on. Jake's been out the finals and griping the whole time because he didn't have a good finals, and it's been bad, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm sitting there, I was like, Mickey, I just don't think it's worth it. I was talking to Jake, and he said it's not even worth it. Nobody really cares after you're done. And I will never forget these words. He's bent over putting this alternator on for me. I'm there just holding nothing, you know what I mean? And he looks right at me, and he said, you know what? Jake can say that, but you can't. He's been there. He can make that assumption. You can't. And that was powerful stuff.
That's huge.
You know what I mean? That was powerful stuff. That's 2013. I made the finals the next year.
That's one of those things where if you really internalize it, you can do something.
Absolutely. But I drew the line. But I think, too, you got to draw your line in the sand. I knew by the time I was 30, I knew I had talent outside of roping. I didn't know what that talent was. I didn't know how I'd ever make money with it. I knew that worst case, I can go to work for Scott and make $750 a week. Right? Like that was my jump off point. But I said, when I'm 30 years old, if I haven't done it, then we're calling in. But I still got fight left in me.
That's right.
So I drew my line in the sand, and I took a fire at it, and then I made the finals when I was 29. So that was huge.
That is huge
for me, and it was a building block for success in the future. That if you put your mind to something, just like buying my wife's ring, if I put my mind to it, I can make it happen. I don't know how yet, right? But I got to see the vision of what I want. I got to see myself holding it, and I got to see myself getting there, and then I will find the way.
Yeah. I mean, you literally, it sounds kind of woo-woo, but you have absolutely got to manifest your own destiny. That's the only way it works.
Well, and that's what I thought Clinton Anderson was so great the other day when he talked about, hey, this is a place you can do it too. I'm tired of hearing about how terrible America is and this and that, blah, blah. They always try to bring out, and it is interesting as I start taking my government classes now that I'm back to being a college-educated man, about how much they've tried to manipulate the media since they were signing the Constitution. You know what I mean? And that's why the other day I was so, I've seen you guys catch so much crap on Facebook. I don't even know who those people were.
Yeah.
Right?
I didn't know who they were. And somebody's going to say, you're a liar. They buy your sister's horse supplements. Well, yeah, so does 1,000 other people.
So does hopefully 10 billion other people.
Yeah.
But no, I thought was great. And you offer a platform to many different people. And I think that's amazing, right? I think that's what you have to have. But, Clinton said it best when he said, you think this place go somewhere else. Hey, you're in America. I can make a living roping. I can make a living. Well, I can pay some bills waiting tables at Los Cocos, right? I can go make money doing what I want to do.
You'll never be homeless
where
if you
I
decide not to be homeless here.
Right, exactly.
There's places in this world where
That's
no matter
a great
what
point.
Where no matter what you do, no matter how hard you work, no matter how great of a person you are, how skilled you are, you're never going to be able to make anything of yourself, which is why some people hop on a raft and try to paddle to the United States.
Yeah, they sacrifice everything.
And then we have these politicians in this country who are praising these dictatorships, selling our land to these dictators. And then you've got a whole entire group of people who have no idea about our way of life, what we do, what we stand for, or what can be accomplished because they refuse to do it, that they'll praise these. I got a great idea. Let's institute Karl Marx's ideas in the United States.
Yeah, that's worked.
That's worked through history. That whole thing has worked great.
That feels like running back into that wall, like my professor said.
80 million,
You know what I mean?
80 million people aren't dead because of that book. No way. I think we should do that in the United States. It'll work here.
And I think that's one of the most dangerous things is when, you start any kind of censorship is terrible. I don't care, I have to watch it because I have people that, get on there and talk about rodeo and stuff and this and that. And one time I deleted their comment and I thought to myself, that's terrible because that's not what I'm about. You're welcome to have your opinion because honestly, opinions, sitting down and having a conversation where we can both visit and you don't think I'm the worst person in the world just because my opinion is different than yours.
Yeah.
Right? That's where we've gotten to in America.
Well, our number one amendment, the very first one, is all about that principle.
Absolutely.
The first one. Why do you think they did that? Because if you silence people, you control everything.
Exactly.
So why do you think we've got an administration, not trying to get political, but their entire goal is to eradicate the First Amendment? They're going out there and trying to get rid of people who are
and the problem is
just asking
changing
questions.
History, man. Look how much the history books changed from when we took school to now. And I look at my kids oh my gosh, where are they trying to go with it, man? If you forget history, you get straight Animal Farm style. I don't know if you've read that book. It's very intriguing.
They don't even let you read that book in school anymore, but I got to read that when I was I think a freshman in high school is maybe when read that
and
book.
I think that's one thing I still love. I'm a huge, we all love America. But you just think about the overreach you felt with the government telling you your business was not essential.
Absolutely.
Right? What?
And you don't even know how to fight that fight. You don't even know who to call.
What are we doing here? Then all of a sudden, that was just a small fraction of what a lot of people go through every day of their life that don't live here. So it's man, you bash it all you want, and you try to say all this, you got, the people that don't like America, you say what you want, go somewhere else. I think it's amazing the opportunities here, just because amazing the opportunities that I've been afforded from a little kid roping a dummy in the middle of his yard to be able to be where I'm at now. Not even saying I'm wildly successful and I'm going to be able to retire and I have all these riches and all this gold.
That's not the point, though, right?
But I've been able to have a career and have a lot of fun doing exactly what I've wanted to do every day of my life.
And you can't do it anywhere else.
No.
And so then that brings me to my final point on why jaded with the rodeo world, with the cowboys, with that.
I'm so glad I asked you that question. Yeah. I was not trying to upset you at all.
You did not
I
upset
wanted
me
to
at
have
all.
I really wanted to ask you that.
No, if I'm going to ask you transparent questions and I don't allow you to do the same, what kind of a hypocrite am I? But it goes to my final point on the issue is the most resilient people that I know, and even some of the most intelligent people I know, are in our world, right? And you can see all this romanticized stuff on a show like Yellowstone. Has a bunch of flaws with that, but what it does is it romanticizes the cowboy and shows this element of what we are, whatever way you consider yourself to be a cowboy, if you're a cowboy, is that we're resilient and we can make a difference, but no one will. No one in this industry will stand up against any form of injustice in the world. They didn't want to know about it. In fact, I'll bring some political people on this show, big ones who are running for governor, some that were in Trump's White House, some that were senators, and they'll sit here and listen to you and me BS about Mexican restaurants and roping. Hundreds of thousands of people will listen to these different episodes about that, but you put someone who's running for governor in the state of Texas on, and they don't want to hear what he has to say. It's like, ooh, that I don't want to hear about what's going on in the world. Why?
Well, but see, because I think honestly, like I don't want to hear the nonsense about it. Give me the information. Let me draw a conclusion. Too many people try to take the narrative away from the viewer, and that, to me, like the prime example was whenever Trump was running against Hillary back in 2016. Mm-hmm. I had gone to buy a stock tank for some cows, and my father-in-law, who was alive at the time, very educated man, and the nicest man. Never heard him say one bad word about anybody. Like, and he had plenty of reason too. I mean, he had plenty of reason to say bad things about me, I'm sure, you know. And the guy that we were dealing with, hard-loving Democrat, and he was a huge Hillary supporter. And I will never forget watching those two have a conversation, and why one was voting for Trump and one was voting for Hillary. And they left there, they shook hands, they had a civil conversation. That's right. Where you gained from both of them. You know what I mean? You realize they both had knowledge to supply. And they left from there, and I will never forget my father-in-law talking about, that guy's got a lot of nice young bulls. You know, I really liked him. We'll have to come back and buy some more replacement bulls from him later. You know, and just, we've lost that element. It's either you are A or B, right? Yep. Hey, liberal, I'll be honest with you, liberals, to me, have had the worst connotation of the word, right? Like in Oklahoma, of all places, they're you know, there's people blocked on the road and this and that and beating on the trailers, and I don't even know the city, but it's just, you look at it and then you get the word liberal associated with people like that, and then you realize some of our founding people that started this country, they were all liberals. They just wanted the government to stay out of their business.
JFK was a liberal,
just to have enough authority to be able to run the business, but that's it. Stay out of it, my life the rest of the way, right?
Well, liberals, Democrats represented something different before the last decade, right. Really. It was a different thing, right? So the workers' unions came from liberals. A lot of the, like, for the people, by the people stuff came from liberals.
Good ideas.
Now, granted, some really bad ideas came from the liberals as well, like, you know, the Ku Klux Klan and things like that. A lot of people don't realize that.
I'm not saying all that. I know.
I'm just, but they've completely forgotten all that, which means,
it shocked me when John Locke was a liberal. Like when I heard that, like in my psychology class, and I read that, I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Like, here's a philosopher, like, and I agree with a lot of what he's saying. Like,
well, there's a lot of liberal principles that have been completely and totally just bastardized over the last 10 years that make a lot of sense. You have to have that balance.
And
you
I
have to have a core balance.
That great word that you just say, it's the bastardization of the news that has just tilted us off.
So mainstream media is the absolute killer. I mean, look what's happening to Joe Rogan right now, and we're going to talk about that on the next show we record with someone who can really speak on it as the biggest platform in rodeo. But to kind of finish that statement, the most resilient people in the world to me are cowboys. The boots and the hats that we wear mean something. Mm-hmm. And I think it's time that we throw our boots and our hats in the arena and defend this freaking country.
That's a great point.
Whether it be on this platform, something like this, talking about it, or just educating yourself, going to the state, the county level, and do something about this stuff.
Right, but I don't think people know how. Like they don't not enough people know how. Like the people that you want, you know, I never forget, I stepped on a plane one time. Of course, we always fly. Always have your spurs on. And this lady was talking to me. They were losing their stuff because I was in the exit row. I will never forget this. And they said that I needed to take my spurs and turn them around so that when the plane crashed and the chute comes out, I don't pop the slide for everybody. And I said, ma'am, with all due respect, why don't we not wreck this thing? One. And two, I guarantee if we have another hijacking type situation, you'll seek out the people with spurs on their boots, right? They're not.
That's my whole point.
And so I just think the people that are the backbone of America, they don't know how to make a difference because too many of them are going to say, man, honestly, without getting too political,
everything you need to know how to make a difference, you've got in your pocket.
But you know what's sad is you don't believe about half of what you read, right? You only believe about half of what you hear and about twice what you see. You know what I mean? Because honestly, I don't care. I don't like getting into the talk of the election, right? And everybody does. Nobody likes talking about it,
especially now.
But my question about our whole election, right? When I watched it all night, I was so intrigued by it. I love politics.
So do I.
And so you watch it, and all of a sudden,
second biggest passion in my life is politics.
Then all of a sudden, we're going to cut. Okay, guys, we're cutting off the counting at midnight, right? And we're going to start again at 6. Like I had set my alarm. I had gotten up at 6 to start. Oh wait, whoa, hold on. We found a bunch more of this over here, and I'm like, man, that is why my dad taught me when you play cards, you never put your cards below the table, right? Mm-hmm. Like you get slapped at my house if you're in a pitch game and or if you tap your ring, right? Or when we're playing Monopoly on Thanksgiving, we don't all simultaneously take a bathroom or drink break and let the banker sit next to the plate, right? Like you don't do that. And I thought, so all of a sudden you lost integrity, and you realize that you got a feeling that, well, then what I say really doesn't matter, right? And it kind of gives a defeated feeling of like, what's the point in making a fuss about it because it's not going to make a difference.
There is,
and I think that's the problem with what you say. Like, not enough people. I mean, I think there's plenty of guys willing to throw their hat in the ring if there's a process and a way that they can make a difference and they see it.
The only way that you can make a difference right now, because let's just be honest, there's so many inner workings that you wouldn't even know how to penetrate, is just have a voice. That's the only way that I know how that anybody can do anything is speak up against it. If you get enough people speaking up against it, then you're more powerful than the people speaking against you, right? You're seeing that right now. CNN, their highest rated show has got 700,000 views, right? And then you've got Joe Rogan, who his lowest rated show has 11 million.
And then I love
and then they're trying to
right
cancel
now. They're
him.
just almost like at each other's throats about, well, it's his fault, it's their fault.
No, they don't even know. They're eating themselves because of that. But we could do the same thing. We could prevent a lot of this.
The new Netflix show, Don't Look Up?
Nope.
I watched that the other day. Oh my gosh, it is so comical how parallel things seem to right now.
Yeah. It's unbelievable. Yeah, there's almost all these foreshadowing that they put out in movies and TV, and like you don't even see it. But the whole, you brought up Teton Ridge and Yellowstone and all that. I don't know if you see what everybody says about that.
No,
about Teton Ridge.
No, I don't.
Oh, it's pretty wild. But
there's some conspiracy theory type shit. Is that what you're talking about?
Huge conspiracy theories.
Yes.
Somebody posted something yesterday on Facebook, and I happened to fall into the rabbit hole on accident. And this lady posted this whole thing, whether or not they're right or wrong. It was amazing. It got shared like 4,000 times about Teton Ridge and how they're actually China buying up U.S. ranches.
Oh, okay. So I've heard that. I've heard that from people close to my community, like people that I wouldn't assume, because you got people that you'd be like, oh yeah, of course they'd say that, but then you got.
Yeah, and I could see where because everything's public information, I could see where they could go down that rabbit hole, right? So you look at Teton Ridge, and then you look at who owns Teton Ridge, and you look at who they sold their company to in China, and then they see words like, and this just comes to the sense where people don't understand anything about business, but they see foreign entity LLC. Well, they're assuming that means out of this country.
Right.
Foreign entity LLC in the state of Texas just means you do business outside of the state of Texas. Doesn't mean they're a Chinese company. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's funny, and maybe they are. Maybe it is. Maybe it's Chinese incels and it's all these things, but and then they look at the guy who owns Teton Ridge, the main guy, and they see he sold his production company to China, right? Okay. But then at the same time, if you start searching his name, you can see where he openly speaks out against China coming to the U.S. to do business. So it's like, what do you believe? You don't really know. But I'll tell you what, if people were real worried about it and they get that phone call, they're going to sell that ranch in a heartbeat.
Hey, you saw it happen with medical marijuana plant growers in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Just started popping up overnight everywhere.
They're everywhere.
They just start coming. Just each direction. And then now they've finally, I guess, I don't know if I'm not real into on the know. Right. Because people think that's a lot easier than what it is. Like I have with my hay meadows, like keeping them burned off the right time and getting the sage grass gone. Like I couldn't imagine trying to I had a buddy that got into it.
Those are real sensitive plants apparently.
Oh
too.
My goodness. You got to be a mad scientist. Like you got to be real. It's not like it's not fantasy that everybody draws it up to be. But man, that's one thing. And then of course, then you hear the conspiracies about all that's going down.
That's right.
Oh man, here we go. They're taking us over from the inside out. And then you start, you would never guess of seeing that. But then also, I never thought I would see half the things that I've seen the past 2 years. So I guess it's got us all just a little bit on edge.
It does, yeah. And at the end of the day, the only thing that you can really do is just speak up against the things that you think are wrong and speak up even louder for the things you think are right. And that's just the end of the day. And that's the only thing I wish Cowboys did more is speak up. Because they're probably the most formidable people around, in my opinion, when it comes to just being hard. And you need hard people. You need hard men in times like these.
I think the hardest thing, though, is we haven't in our association and stuff. Anytime they've tried to make change, like it's never ended well. It's never, people don't have a clear path for it. And I think that's the main thing is to educate yourself and put yourself in a position where you could see your game plan go to work.
That's right.
And how you're going to make a difference, and then surround yourself with the people that are going to bring you up. That are going to help you in that instance.
Absolutely. But at the end of the day, I think Cowboys are the best people in the world to be representing anything about America, and I want to see more people step in.
Absolutely. I've been fortunate. I've been raised in the Western industry my whole life. My dad, he's worked in it all my life, and of course I've roped and everything else, but there's nothing more to be proud of than having a cowboy hat on your head and a pair of good Justin boots on your feet. You know what I mean? That's just the end of the day. That's how it is. And
done deal.
And you can fit in any environment, and people find you intriguing. That is,
they do. Fun. Yeah, they see you wearing the hat and the boots. God forbid you got the Spurs on, walking through someplace. Like someone's gonna stop you and say, "Hey, are you a real cowboy?"
Right. Especially, are you really out there doing it? Yeah.
And you're like, "God damn right, I am."
I know. My man J-Dub bought me a pair of chaps the other day. I cannot wait to drag calves. Like I'm fixing to go drag something right now, just because. Like not even because we need to work cattle right now, but just like
that's my favorite thing about like cow horse and working cow horses, they get to wear those chaps.
Oh,
They just look cooler than shit, don't they?
oh, and mine have
I don't
the
even own a
brand
pair,
on
but
them.
I would love
Like
to
they're-
have a pair of those and just wear them around. I mean, the closest thing I have to cow horses that my friend Clinton has cow horses. You know,
Right.
He has the chaps, but I don't have them. We need something in rodeo where you can wear those.
Well, yeah, like an event, like, you know, bareback riding or saddle bronc riding or bull riding.
Yeah, they're different though. They're
You know, you
different.
made an interesting comment earlier about the appearance fee, but isn't that what you kind of appreciate about a guy like Sage Kimsey or JB Mooney? They're always like, those are public figures. Like people, I mean, heck, I want to get my picture with JB Mooney, right?
They're
Like,
badasses.
yeah, and to see them be so accessible to the public, I think that's what I love about Cowboys and who they are and what they stand for.
Oh, I love the accessibility.
Right.
I'm just saying that their faces and the work that they put in to elevate the sport's worth something. I don't mean that they need an appearance fee to like be accessible to people.
To like little kids, be like, hey,
Yeah,
that's
not that. That's a totally
$7.50.
different thing.
Bring
What I'm saying is, if Sage Kimsey enters the perf at the Houston Rodeo, Houston should pay him something for that because they're making a lot of money off his face stamped on that ticket or your face or whoever's. If your face is stamped on that ticket at the NFR, I think that's valuable. You should get something for your likeness being utilized. That's all I mean by appearance
I got
fee.
you.
You know, and because all the other industries have that set up.
See, I think you're such an intriguing mind to talk about it because you've been in rodeo, you've seen what those guys don't get, and then you've been outside of rodeo. Like most of us have no idea. Like, oh, people get paid for that. Like,
Yeah.
you ever seen like We're the Millers? Like, you guys are getting paid. Like,
Oh, absolutely.
right? So that, I mean, we don't have any idea.
But I have friends who are in other professional sports, and so where I've kind of got to get these collective ideas. And then in my other business that I've got business partners in California, and I go to California and get to meet with like eccentric people that you just don't normally have access to. And when they say, "Where are you from?" and you tell them, and then you explain some of these things, they look at you like you're insane, right? If you talk to a professional baseball player and you tell them that you pay to play, and that there's no guarantees whatsoever, they're like, why the fuck would anybody do that?
Why are you investing all your money, time, and effort?
Well, and so we have a great friend. He's a 3-time MLB All-Star, right? And I showed him how to rope. I showed him how to ride, all these different things. And he's really enamored now he's like in golf, but really enamored with rodeo. We took him to the NFR, set him up in the booth with George Taylor when he was the CEO, and got him to watch. And when he found out that there's no appearance fees, like these aren't just ideas I had. These are things that people brought to my attention. I'm like, you're goddamn right. That doesn't make a lot of sense. If you're the most famous bull rider in rodeo and your face is on the billboard and your face is on that ticket that kid will have for the rest of his life, and you got nothing for your likeness,
We should be getting paid for
you
that.
should be getting something. You know what that value is, I don't know. But if you're going to slap Coleman's face on something that you're selling and profiting from, and he doesn't get anything, horse shit.
Right. Well, see, the only time that I've really ever thought I should get paid is at one time they made my face into a urinal cake, and I thought, man, if I'm getting peed on all the time, I need to be paid for that.
Well, I mean, there's a whole industry of people who get peed on and they get paid.
Well, that's, now we are down the rabbit hole.
Same city, Vegas.
Let's
Oh,
not
that's
get demonetized,
awesome.
please.
Yeah,
That is
I know. He's
awesome.
always saying, you're going to get us demonetized with your mouth. I'm sorry, I can't help it. But
I love that it is funny you talk about MLB All-Star. So
Yeah.
there was one in Fort Scott, and Adam LaRoche,
yeah,
right? So the only thing I knew about Adam LaRoche is they had goat ropings at his house.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I go with my stepbrother over there one time. I have no idea who Adam LaRoche is and what he
Yeah.
looks like. No idea. I just know there's a guy trying to rope left-handed, and
Mm-hmm.
he's got 2 gloves on.
yeah.
Right. And so I talked to him just a little bit about like he was having heck catching up with these goats, and
Yeah.
of course me being a teacher, just naturally, I'm
Right.
like, hey man, like if you would square up before you leave, like you could get it on him faster.
Yeah.
So we started talking about. It's like, well, it's like hitting a golf ball. Like growing up, you ever hit like a baseball?
Yeah.
I asked Adam LaRoche if he had ever hit a baseball. Okay, let's just put that in perspective. I have no idea who the guy is.
Yeah.
All I know is he does win the next goat rope. One's a buckle. Thank you very much. The next time I see that guy's face, I'm at a Chili's in Mineral Wells, Texas, and there he goes, going yard, like for a 2-run shot to win the
Spit your
game.
sweet
And I'm
tea
like,
out.
that's the guy, because he had these gloves. I'm like, those are sweet gloves, and they were some brand like that
Yeah.
was not associated with baseball. He's like, yeah, I've been using them for baseball. I'm thinking, oh, he must play like slow pitch softball or something. You know,
Yeah.
like I had no idea.
Yeah.
Right over my head.
That's pretty dang funny.
Yeah. I asked Adam Roach if he'd ever hit a baseball.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. That's like you get the reference. But well, Coleman, I think one of the things that I realized is I think you and I could talk for 45 hours. And
Hey, it was a
not
lot of
take one
fun.
pee break.
I was kind of concerned. I was like, man, I really don't know what we're going to talk about for that long, because I'm not that interesting of a person. Like,
Yeah.
I don't, but I've appreciated getting to come down here. You have a beautiful place.
Yeah, no, thank you for coming. And I think this might be a really valuable podcast for a lot of people. And that's my favorite thing about this podcast. When we put something out, it's so many people get access to it. And so with us just kind of rifting back and forth on these concepts that are, some people wouldn't touch a lot of the stuff we've
Right.
talked about, but people are going to get something out of it. So I'm glad you took the time out before you guys head home to sit down, and we'll have to do this again because I think it's going to be a pretty popular one.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate it. Have fun and be safe traveling around out there. It's kind of bad weather today, but
yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. I had to go pick up Ty from his apartment back in the middle of freaking nowhere city. I was like, I couldn't find his apartment. I'm like, we're going to be freaking late. Where do you live, you little son of a bitch?
I like how he said convertibles aren't that good in the snow. No, you need a 4-wheel drive, hand. Like, let's kick it up a notch, huh?
The problem is we only get this like once a year.
Yeah.
Maybe once a year.
Of course, the 4-wheel drive doesn't do a whole lot when the road's an ice rink. You just slide a little slower.
That's a good point. You know, it's funny because you pulled. I had no idea what you're going to drive. And you come pull it in. I'm like, you have the most Texas truck ever, right? Like it's
Ford F-350.
Ford F-350, big tires, kind of jacked up a little bit. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's tall. Like
I just put mud tires. That's regular Ford. Got it from
but I mean, it's
got
big.
it from Bill
Like, to
Fick,
me,
just
like you
everybody.
look at that, you're like, that is. That is absolutely a Texas truck.
That's the truck I drive around.
Because when I drive in the middle of downtown Fort Worth and I'm looking for some office to go in here and talk on the Gauge podcast, you know, I'm like, I don't know who these people are that we've never met.
No, we never met.
And you come pulling in, I'm like, that's my guy.
Yep.
I just automatically know. I love that.
All the
goes
trucks
back to
come
that
from Bill
subculture,
Fick.
baby.
That's right.
He is great. I made one phone call myself.
Yep.
Boom.
Yeah, he's the man. He'll take care of everybody, and you know, if anybody buys their trucks from anybody else, they're stupid.
When you're looking for a new vehicle for you or your wife, you want somebody to take care of you after the sale. Look up Bill Fick Ford.
Now, it's okay if you do Bill Fick Ford ads because he does pay us.
But not Pryor Creek Lawn Care, Quality Lawn Service. Don't I sound like Tin Cup when he's just like, look who I'm looking.
You do.
I'm out here short haul trucking, you know. Think a guy like me worries about the chances.
That's right. Well, we'll let you guys get on the road, and this will be out.
Sir.
This will be out this coming Thursday. So
well,
get ready
look
to listen,
forward to
folks.
it.
All right. This has been The Gauge, hosted by me, Chance Conrado, produced and edited by our guy Ty Yeager. Shout out to the executive producers Dustin Pointer and Cody Denton. Marketing and content produced by Riley Chone. Make sure to rate and review this podcast, as well as follow The Gauge on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And make sure to subscribe to The Gauge wherever you get your podcasts. We'll see you guys next time.